Hello and welcome back to another Digital Foundry live stream. I'm here as always with my good buddy there, Audi Surly, up there at the top.
Greetings and salutations, John. It
Uh,
is a good day, isn't it?
it is indeed, because we have a very special guest here, right there in the middle. This is Mike Chi, the creator of the RetroTINK products. Mike, welcome.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. It's a real honor to be here. I'm really glad that that you guys are taking the time to talk to me.
Oh, absolutely! Like we got to learn more about this. So, before we jump into things, let's get a little history here. You've been doing these RetroTINK products for some years now, right? Going back to just, I think which one was the first one? Was it just the regular RetroTINK with the composite and S-video input?
Yeah, it started, I think, early 2017, and the first thing we did were these Raspberry Pi hats, which
Oh yeah.
are partially built by hand, and it was kind of the reverse. You ran the Raspberry Pi emulators, and it outputted composite S video and component video out to CRT. And then in 2018, we had these little line doublers that took component composite and S video the other way around, line doubled it to HDMI out, and then we've kind of been working on that since then.
Very cool. And this is obviously, we're looking at the RetroTINK 5X today. That's the reason for being here. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is because it's my new favorite retro scaler. And this is
Thank you very much.
of course. So this is important. So it's fantastic for just playing games. But for somebody that's creating video content online, capturing old consoles is something that, have to deal with a lot. And there's a lot of great stuff already out there, but they've all had their own limitations. Don't always work with all the capture hardware. This one does everything, and it does it extremely well. And we're going to go through some of the settings today. We're going to test various games today. Right now, I actually have in a game called Kensei Sacred Fist, which maybe Audi wants to quickly talk about, because you actually introduced me to this one.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just echo what you said. I think the RetroTINK 5X kind of changes the game for everything here, and for game capture, it's just a godsend. And Mike, we said right before we started recording that capturing DF Retro has now you've half the time that we need to set up.
Thank you.
We can just plop in any game. We can just connect the console, and it just works. And that's the thing. It just works. And I really appreciate people who make things that just work, because I'm not very technically inclined. So yeah, it's an amazing product, and I'm very happy that it could be here today. So what was your question again about this game?
Well, I guess, yeah. What's up with this game, and I guess why are we testing it first?
Yeah, so this is a 3D fighting game from Konami, around the time of the Metal Gear Solids and whatnot. I think it's from K-Set, but I might be wrong, which it's from the Kobe team at Konami. And has music by Yamaoka from Silent Hill fame.
Akira Yamaoka.
And I always felt this was the kind of underappreciated fighting game. But for testing today, I think it's very interesting because all the menus are high res. The game itself runs, in interlaced mode.
Exactly. It's not like super
smooth.
high res game, but it does run in
No.
interlaced mode, so it is higher than your typical PlayStation game, which makes it a good test case for today.
Yes, and this is one that I've always wanted to play this a lot more on DF Retro stuff and live streams, and just for my own live streaming too. I just enjoy playing this game. It even has Steven Seagal. But it's
So that wasn't a joke. He's actually there, licensed and in person.
He's not licensed. He's
Oh,
called
yeah.
Douglas.
Okay.
But I mean, it's still him, pretty much. But yeah, it's just a really fun game, and it's one of those games that via the other capture devices, there's really not much of an option. You
Yeah,
can
so-
opt to interlace it, but it's very flickery, this game.
Exactly. And so obviously then let's look a little bit at some of the modes here then. So we're actually in, so I have two streaming layouts, one for the widescreen so you can see the upper menu there. And I guess this is the first product you've put out, Mike, that actually has sort of a GUI of any sort. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it is. I'm kind of ashamed to say that as a hardware guy, user interfaces and these kind of things aren't my forte. So, but something like this, you just can't do without a GUI. So I got strong armed into putting this in.
So
Is it GUI? Isn't
Yeah.
it GUI?
no, it's GUI. That's
It's like
usually
the GIF and GIF situation
it
all
is.
over again.
It is.
All right.
So I guess I kind of want to start off, since we're in an interlaced game here. I guess one of the big features of this thing that you don't really get with the OSSC, you did get with the FrameMeister, but most other devices like this didn't really do a great job with this necessarily. It's the scaling. So by default, I guess the OSSC had this Bob De-interlace, it might be hard to see on the stream actually, but if you look at the logo, you can sort of see. Essentially, because it's interlaced, it's alternating between the odd and even scan lines, as it really would on an actual CRT television. And that each one of those flickers is like the new frame information. So it's basically 60 fields per second, technically. But in terms of what your eyes see, I guess they kind of blend it together on a real CRT, but it can be a little bit off-putting on a digital display. And so you implemented motion adaptive de-interlacing. Can you talk a little bit about that, actually?
For sure, that's right. And I think Bob de-interlacing looked better on a CRT because just because of the softness, it kind of blends it together. It does look a lot more flickery on a high-resolution BVM, which is why I could never play it on a BVM or anything.
Oh, I know what you mean, a high line count monitor. Yeah,
exactly.
You're right,
Whereas the consumer one kind of softens it out because the scan lines, the width bleeds into each other, so it's not so. It's actually quite. The look is actually quite good to me on a consumer TV. But on a flat panel, it really shows up like on a high-res CRT. Motion adaptive de-interlacing is pretty much what all modern devices use. So when you plug it into your flat screen, if it has a composite input or analog input, it has to de-interlace it to show it correctly on a screen, on a modern screen. In terms of what I did here, the form of motion adaptive de-interlacing, I wouldn't say is anything revolutionary special. It's actually a very basic implementation, but it's like a lot of things in this space. Curiously, basic types of implementations tend to work better for game content because less processing means you can do it with less lag. There's no lag in the way that the 5X does motion adaptive de-interlacing, and there's also no extra smoothing or smudging, which a lot of TVs do to try to hide the blockiness, which again goes back to simpler processing often works better for gaming, and that's why it was possible to do this on a relatively modest FPGA, whereas if you buy a consumer AV piece of equipment, it's got a very complex de-interlacer on a custom designed chip that works fantastic for movies, but not so good for games.
Yeah, because again, they're designed to improve image quality, but at the expense of input latency, and that's really the goal here, was to keep it responsive, I assume, but also introduce. Yep. So it's the current algorithm, I guess. It's pretty good. It's actually very comparable to the FrameMeister, slightly better perhaps, but it does still fall prey to some of the limitations. Specifically, the murderous test case for this is always the Attract demos for Tekken Tag Tournament on the PlayStation 2, where they sort of have these lightning flashes in the sky, and that always reveals, I'll show that later actually, but that's something that no gaming-based de-interlacer has ever fully tackled. And
I think the reason is because a movie-based de-interlacer tries really hard, I think, to hide these combing artifacts and de-interlacer artifacts, and the way they do that is by smearing the image. Yeah. And they smear that image over time, so multiple frames kind of blend together. The FrameMeister, I believe, in the gaming mode for the de-interlacer doesn't do that as well, and that's really because I think the goal for us is to try to get sharp pixels when you can.
And I think fundamentally, if you just think about it for the audience for a second, the reason I think combing artifacts appear is when you have too great a change between pixels between one frame and the next. And, that's why screen flashes are so difficult to handle, because the entire screen is changing from one frame to the next to the other frame. So I think that's really hard to pick up. It's similar to, like, I guess a lot of the temporal anti-aliasing of techniques you see today, where they sort of build over frames. But I guess that's the case here, right? Like with de-interlacing the image, if too many pixels change too much per frame, there's no way to really interpolate that in a pleasing way without blurring the image.
Exactly. It's a problem of interpolating over multiple frames as well as detecting change over multiple frames. And the more frames you have, the better the quality of the reconstruction and the motion detection to detect, hey, we can't weave 2 frames together. We have to use some sort of bob or blend, right? But of course, the more frames you need to look at, the more latency you have. Whereas the de-interlacer in the 5X, it really is only looking at the current field and the previous field. So there's no lag, but the window it's looking at is much shorter.
Yes, absolutely. So that's cool. But this has been a game changer, I think, for a lot of people, because especially with I'll have to load up some PlayStation 2 stuff as well. Actually, I can probably do that right now, because I think the PS2 is the one that benefits perhaps the most due to the nature of its output. Very few games really natively support progressive scan, and it relies heavily on field rendering. So the games themselves are literally, like, they might only draw vertical 224 worth of pixels every frame, and it's just alternating them rapidly to sort of simulate a higher resolution. So
yeah, PS2 is a weird beast. You know, I imagine. I mean, I know nothing about software development, but I couldn't have imagined it was fun for the developers to try to do the games natively in, you know, interlace think.
let's see here. Where is it?
He's going to get his massive PS2 collection now.
We're gonna put Tekken in.
Tekken tag.
Yeah, let's see how this looks. This will be a good one. So, I've unplugged that, and this gives us a taste of, I guess, the inputs here. Did I bumped the PlayStation's power switch? So, whoops. So we can change the input directly here.
I promise you, we're professionals.
We don't want that. Let's see. This should be component. There it is. So there we are. Oh, I guess that memory card is full. Oh, right. That's the cable. There.
Get this lightning you're talking about.
Yeah, that'll happen in the more attract mode. So, But yeah, these early PlayStation 2 games especially, they really rely heavily on field rendering. And so this is a really good test, I think, for it.
Do you remember how many games off the top of your head had progressive scan on the PS2? Like, I know Outrun 2.
There's a bunch of later games, actually. But that actually gets to something I'm curious about, Mike. Like do you have like a fixed pool of games that you like to test? Or are you just kind of going through each system and just throwing whatever you can at it? Like, what's your process for dialing this stuff in?
Oh man, it's such a tough. One of the biggest challenges building these things is you got so many different combinations, and a lot of these, especially the earlier PlayStation. By the PlayStation 2, people were really good at following video standards. So the PS2 outputs, NTSC or PAL stock standard, but the earlier stuff, no one adhered to standards, and it'll drive you crazy. So my go-to testing is kind of a Super Nintendo, because it has that jitter. So that's kind of a good stress test for input sync processor. But my go-to really has been a PlayStation 1, which has been modded so that you can just output pretty much PAL or NTSC. So that's kind of a good check at both progressive scan 288 or 240p, as well as 528.5i and 625i. So that's a good check. I've also got a PlayStation 2 that you can cycle between anything from 240p to 480p, 576p, up to high def modes. So that's pretty good. And then I have other consoles. I just try. Honestly, my life these days has just been buying consoles and testing them. You try to test as much as possible. and you catch things, but in the end, you still have to rely on the community feedback to see what problems they have, and then I'll try to buy the console and then put the patch in. But it's just you just got to try everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I guess that's the key with this. This is a it's a small scale project here. I mean, it's you, right? I mean, it's you plus any community contributors that you're talking to. But I mean, you're doing most of the development on this, right? Or all of it, I suppose.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's in terms of development, it's just me. I mean, my wife helps me out a huge amount with the other side of the business, shipping, and shipping and running the thing. But in terms of debugging and adding features, that's pretty much just me. Plus, whatever feedback I can get from people out there.
Something wrong? I guess he left us. Oh, he got a box.
The door rang. What can I say?
Oh, I see. That's what happened.
There was a large box waiting for me.
Does it have my name on it?
No, it does not. It has Digital Foundry's name on it.
Oh, I see.
Oh man, look at this. Gosh, this game.
This game looks amazing still to this day, doesn't it?
This was seeing this back in 2000.
Yeah.
It really looked amazing.
I couldn't believe it the first time I played this on my living room CRT. It still shocks me just how good like the facial expression stuff are in this game compared to like the PS2, which had none. Oh, sorry,
Exactly.
the PS1.
Yeah.
Tekken 3, they're just textures.
Exactly. Did you guys happen to notice the thing I was talking about with the lightning?
Yeah, so it has those lines.
Yeah, the combing artifacts.
Mm-hmm. So
That's a tough one. Oh man.
I often wondered if people could actually tell the difference between something on a PS2 or say an Xbox on their standard def screens, probably playing over composite back in the days. You see a pretty big difference today with the modern capture equipment, but I don't know about back then.
I think you could. So the main thing is that, and this is interesting, is that by default Xbox uses a really strong flicker filter on so on a standard def screen. That's what it uses, and in retrospect, I actually don't like that because it really softens the image. Like back in the day, people used to call, it's just anti-aliasing, but it's not really. Like I guess you could kind of treat it that way, but it ends up. I really like those super sharp lines you get out of a PS2. And now I think it looks really cool. But I can see why back in the day it wouldn't have been loved, because there were actually plenty of PS2 games that did end up having flicker filters, but because it wasn't done by default, it was something the developers had to implement themselves. It's a very low cost operation, very easy to do, but it just wasn't there by default on PlayStation 2. So yeah, it gives the systems a very different look. But of course, you don't need that if you're doing progressive scan. And we'll look at some progressive scan stuff as well here shortly, so I can showcase that, and we can even do a little widescreen action.
It seems to me though that the PS2 was the reason why a lot of people picked up the RetroTINK 5X. Like a lot of the Twitter messages and stuff I saw dealt with the PS2 specifically.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
It's really cool to just see it working this well with it, because that's a hard console. We know this from experience, but it's a hard console to stream or just capture and get like pristine capture.
Exactly.
So, and that's completely mitigated now. I mean, now we can do it every day.
This looks really good, I have to say.
I'm glad to hear that.
Just seeing this again, like the PS2 is one that's, man, I think it looks awesome. It's an interesting machine, but yeah, it's always been tricky to showcase in a video. And I don't think Bob De-interlacing is actually a good fit for YouTube. I don't mind it on an actual screen, but it looks pretty lousy within YouTube videos, I think. Mainly because, a lot of devices don't even perfectly play back YouTube content, so you sometimes get slight frame time inconsistencies, which means that the field's kind of go out of sync, so you might get 2 frames where, you miss out on one of the updates, so you get kind of this back and forth of a chunky look that's not quite right.
Yeah, because the YouTube, when the capture process changes the frame rate, so you have repeated or drop frames, and then if you have a missed pattern in that up down up down up down, it can look pretty bad.
Yeah, it needs to be perfect, basically, and if it's not, it just doesn't look great.
So, John, what cables are you using on the PS2 right now?
These are the official Sony component cables.
Okay, so component.
This is component video currently, and this is 480i, of course. And how about I pop in... somebody's saying Virtua Fighter 4, please. Let's do that.
I'm just amazed you have all these games. You have so many games that you can just turn around and grab from the shelf.
Right? Well, it comes with a job. It's like both of us just have like this library that we have to draw from every day because you never know what we have to capture. So, and we're just crazy collectors, and somehow married. I'm not sure how this has happened. So, Mike, what you have to test all these consoles, but do you have a favorite console yourself? Like just outside of testing and all that, do you have a console that you really enjoy playing?
Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the same story that everyone probably has. It's whatever console you played with most as a kid. It's probably your favorite console. I played most of the Super Nintendo, so that's been kind of my go-to.
Let me resize this a little bit real quick.
You don't mind testing so much Super Nintendo then, I guess, when you do the tinking.
Yeah. Sometimes, it kind of testing and playing blends together, which is good.
Yeah.
By the way, right now we're actually looking at... So this is a modded PS2, but it's a PAL system originally. So this UI that we're looking at here, this is 50 hertz. So this is 576i right now. So for the audience that's curious, and we can look at something else PAL soon enough if you guys want. But yeah, this is kind of what it looks like. Just straight up running 50 hertz interlaced on this thing. And Mike, I think currently though the one limitation is that so one of the best things about the RetroTINK, I think, is that you've done all these I guess you could say like the values for timing. My mind is blanking here on what to call it here, but essentially you can dial in the exact settings through a menu. You don't actually have to do it manually like on the OSSC. So the sampling rate. So on most on most NTSC things that are 240p lower resolution, you've actually gone through, and this is a process you had to do manually. You're basically looking through what the community's done and then tweaking it yourself to figure out the correct sampling rate to get perfect pixels, essentially. That's right, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. And it was really built on a lot of good work by the community, by people like Firebrand, who've over the years taken the time to really document these things. The exact sample rate for a Super Nintendo or all the various modes for a PlayStation. So all those are built in, and the FPGA will just will use that information to try and to sample at the correct rate, try to evaluate all the different possible phases, and then pick the best one for you, and then give you that perfect, call it emulator sharp, or as close as possible, given that you're looking at analog sources. So that works for a lot of 240p NTSC consoles. I would like to eventually add the counterparts for PAL, but one of the challenges is that the documentation for PAL consoles is let's say far more incomplete and sparse. So that is going to take a lot more legwork to try to get the right values in. But to be fair, generic looks quite sharp, especially if you've got a good quality console. So as with anything, things just take time.
Oh, so go ahead,
John.
Audi.
We have a super chat.
All right, our first super chat of the day. What do we got?
Well, no, actually, there's several.
Oh.
We're just catching up right now. But Trago Gaming is sending us $5, and I'm asking.
Thank you,
He's
Trago.
asking Mike, when the heck can I buy one? Because I guess they are still sold out.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's a good question. This year has been a tough year for manufacturing just because of chip shortages. I think we were lucky to be able to get the second batch in. We had to do an emergency redesign in March to make that happen. But with any luck, it'll show up in end of June, early July. And our hope is to have more stock than we did at first. So, eventually our goal is really just to have inventory so people aren't in a rush. But and I'm hoping we'll get there this year. But the short answer is the next batch should drop in about a month or so. or about a month and a
Cool.
half.
Cool.
It's just you and your wife basically doing this, right, out of your home, shipping
Yeah,
and
pretty
testing.
much.
So patience is part of this, and I mean you do so much amazing work, so I'm sure people can wait. Now the next one
Thank you.
is not a super chat, but it's a Scandinavian question, so it's the same for me. But Jonas Åkerud is saying he's looking forward to when the Tink 5X is available for a European reseller. And I'm just curious, can you say anything about European resellers and the Tink?
Yeah, we work with Matt over at Video Game Perfection, as well as Jan at Consoles for You. So hopefully we'll be able to get them some stock too. And we've worked with both of them for years. I know it's a tough process buying stuff in Europe because you've got the everything you buy from the U.S. gets hit with that. And of course, with between that and just the pain of international shipping, I can understand how it's pretty obnoxious. Definitely feel y'all's pain.
This
Yeah,
is
especially
by the way,
nowadays.
this is looking really good. I just wanted to say, Virtua Fighter 4. This is a very jaggy
Yes.
game. This is the kind of game that gives the PlayStation 2 the jaggy's name, but it still looks awesome.
It looks amazing. Yeah.
But anyway,
let's go to the next super chat from EVChill2. May I humbly request Valkyrie profile Silmeria 2? Love you
You
guys.
may.
Take care.
uh-oh, we have a visitor.
It's the round.
Wait, for real, but my internet is like super slow right now.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I know who to blame for that.
Yeah, like
Because we're using it, buddy. Sorry.
like a really.
Do you have it set up so
really
that it
slow.
prioritizes bandwidth when you're online?
Yeah. No, did you run a speed test run?
I can't because the page won't load.
Oh.
I've been waiting
Well,
for 5 minutes for the page to load.
What
It
did
just
you try
won't.
unplugging your adapter?
I did that 5 times.
Five times?
Or 4 times, and it literally.
Well, when I'm done streaming
so happy
later,
we're getting this on stream.
we'll take a look at it, okay, pal?
Okay.
I gotta finish this up, all right?
Okay.
Cool.
Like, what do you like?
Okay.
Oh.
That's part of the fun, right? It's always my fault. What can I say?
Your connection looks super smooth.
So we have a couple
But
more
anyway.
super chats, so might as well catch up on them. Bride Zombie 4 sends $5 and says, speaking of shortages, any plans of making 4K scaler? Considering the ridiculous cost of getting into collecting now, price is no consideration for me.
That is a good question. So the technology for 4K exists, but you're talking into the 4 figures. I think for the parts alone. So we're looking at a device that costs in the thousands, and at a complexity in terms of development that may, at this time, and probably into the near term, be quite a bit beyond what a hobbyist type development could do. You really would need a more sounds weird to say, a more quote unquote professional operation to be able to make that happen. And I would say that for a lot of this retro content, going to 1080p or even 1440p for the devices that can support it really gets you, I would say, a lot of the way there. The big challenge is really figuring out the de-interlacing, right, and all the other evils that really mangle retro content. But once you get into the high definition era, granted 4K could probably get you even sharper pixels, but you're really throwing a lot of money and resources at rapidly diminishing returns.
Just call it the RetroTINK 4K and charge 4K for it.
I feel like though with 4K, you're starting to get to the point where you could do almost like phosphor simulation. It's probably still a little bit too low res, but it's getting there, right?
I would say that's one of the big things. And I totally forgot to mention that. Is that at 4K you do have the potential to do very interesting, GPU shader type effects to simulate a CRT and whatnot. And at 4K it gives you the HDMI standard lets you do things like HDR, which could be also good for scanlines, which we talked about.
Yep.
But that we're talking about something that's, I would say, an order of magnitude more complex than what we're playing here.
Right.
At least today, with today and going into the near term.
So do you think you could actually do sort of like tone mapped HDR output on this? Because I mean, we know that it can be done on a 1080p style device. I mean, what's the limitations of whether or not it can be done here?
I think there's two limitations. I think, well, the biggest limitation is, you're still, at the end of the day, we're using an FPGA, which isn't nearly as powerful as an ASIC for doing a very specific task, right? Your GPU is a custom designed chip, and FPGA is a general purpose piece of logic that you're reconfiguring to do a specific task. So, that I think is the biggest thing, is that, trying to map these complex operations onto an FPGA, is a daunting. And like the 4K problem, you get to a point where you need very expensive parts to do the things that you'd want to do, at least today and in the next few years.
Fair enough.
We have a super chat from DeLock. He sends us £2 and says, "How does Ridge Racer look?" That is the question. I'm guessing he's talking about
Ridge Racer 5. What do you say we find out? Let's do that. So let's do that then. Because I just have all these games ready to go. So Ridge Racer 5.
There is another super chat from the Ozone Nightmare, $5. Says, "Hi guys, I'd like to request that Mike work on the RetroTINK 5X to help load the page for John's son."
Well, the thing is, though, I don't think Mike can help here, because what we need is Germany to step up their game with internet, or at least in some areas. It's mediocre here. And after Ridge Racer, by the way, I will put in Valkyrie Profile 2, as was requested. So
still Mario 2.
So yeah, keep those requests coming, guys, and we can throw in whatever, if I have the game, it'll go in. So here's some Ridge Racer 5 action with that gorgeous real-time introduction.
So there's been 2 consoles requested a lot just by general chat. I haven't been reading them because they're not super chats. I'm not gonna read them. But I've seen a lot of requests for PSP and then for the Wii. I'm not sure if any of them are set up for today, but we might do another stream.
I'd have to. I don't keep the Wii hooked up necessarily, and
you don't.
I don't. I should though. And yeah, the PSP. I have to dig up those component cables actually. I do have a PSP that's charged up and ready to go back there though.
Did you try PSP with the RetroTINK, Mike?
I did, and there's actually a PSP mode where it blows it up and stretches it, because it shows up it normally outputs in a tiny window. It was what a weird thing, right, for a Sony to do. But that's probably going to come in a firmware update sooner or later. I just need to figure out a nice way to roll in the menu so you can hit PSP, and same thing for GBI. Once I get the once I get the hardware, I'll probably try to test it and put a mode in for that too.
That'll be cool then. So yeah, specific modes for that coming in. That'll be great. One of
the bad things with the PSP is that the component video output does seem a little bit soft and noisy.
It is.
Not sure why, but it was kind of a bummer.
Grand Prix. All right. This is looking good.
There are also a lot of messages just very happy that Mike is here. So
I'm happy too.
Very happy to be here. Thank you guys.
Mike is a legend of the community now.
It is also very early for Mike. I believe you had to get an alarm for today to get up for us. So
happy to do so.
Where are you streaming out of?
I'm in San Diego. So right now it is 7:40.
Right.
Nice and early. Oh, I better not stream that because it's licensed music.
Oh yeah, get off quick.
So
we got another super chat from Norris, 3942, $5. It's not a question; it's just a statement. Norris. It is Clinoa 2.
Okay, so basically after this, we're doing a little Valkyrie profile and then some Clinoa 2. It sounds like.
Yep.
By the way, this game kicks off. This was a game from March 2000, and I love the fact that they implemented depth of field in this game. This was one of the first games I ever played, and possibly one of the first games ever released that actually had sort of depth of field as a post-process like that, which was a hallmark of the PlayStation
2000?
Yeah, March 2000.
Oh wow.
Oh
The
man,
launch of the PlayStation 2 was amazing. Like, it still holds up so well today.
it really does. I agree.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I just think about this from time to time. I don't know why it pops in my head, but I think around that time is when games became recognizably modern. Like you could look at these games and the graphics
Yep,
aren't as
yep.
good, but to someone today it wouldn't look foreign. Whereas just a few years before it would be very different.
Yes.
Yeah, and part of this I think is due to it's helped by the fact that there's such a large indie community now. So there's still a lot of indie games that are developed with the look of these older games in mind as well. So especially in pixel art, but also in less high-end 3D necessarily. But also, I guess you could just say, with the wide range of devices out there, there's still like a huge range of visual targets that people are playing regularly. So not everything looks like a modern AAA game. So yeah, going back to this does not feel ancient at all.
Not at all. We got another $5 from the Oso Nightmare, which means he's officially covered the pizza cost for us by now.
Yes.
If possible, I'd like to see either Rival Schools United by Fate or Bushido Blade. Two great games. Yes.
Oh,
Two very good games.
we'll have to see about that.
Yeah. And then David sends another, or I don't know if he sent earlier, but he sends $5. Thoughts on
David.
upscaling work for PS3 Wii U generation? M Classic claims to take 720 1080p to 1440p.
See, I don't. What M Classic does, based on what I've tested, I haven't tested it in detail, just the original one. The idea is that they're essentially taking in the input signal and then applying some sort of like post-process style anti-aliasing to it, somehow manipulating the image that way. Their goal is to smooth out pixel edges, which is the opposite of what I want. So what I would want, actually, and I'd be curious to see if you could implement this, Mike, and there might not be enough space on the FPGA to pull this off, but I would love to be able to take a 720p input and essentially quadruple that up to like 2560 by 1440. But I feel like that's probably outside of the spec of the TINK 5X. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. 2560 by 1440 would be outputting, I think, a frequency that is quite a bit beyond
Yeah,
capability of the HDMI chip. 1920 by 1440, which is what the mode uses, is I think close enough that we can test it and assure people that you're not going to get a dud unit. I actually did have a 1440p mode where you took the 720p and then doubled it. You'd have to use the TV, the menu in the TV to stretch it back out to 69, and it was quite blocky. I mean, I could definitely put that back in, but I actually took it out because I figured for that generation, you might as well just throw it at the TV scaler.
So that's the thing, Mike, is if you actually 720p is not scaled well by most televisions. They apply a very strong blur to it. Like technically 720p should scale perfectly to 4K, right? Like mathematically it's great, but they don't do it. There's no like nearest neighbor scaling or even like it's just, I think it's designed specifically for video playback, but it's very soft. And as a result, I don't love the way it looks myself. And I've been dying for a way to input like say a PlayStation 3 or an Xbox 360 at its original resolution and output a super sharp image to the screen. But nobody makes a product like this. So maybe if this is something possible here, that would be incredible.
Oh, for sure. I can definitely put that back in. And maybe my results are just skewed because most of my testing is actually on a little computer monitor.
Sure.
It fits on my desk. The computer display might have done it better, just because of course it's designed to scale PC graphics content and not movies.
I have another super chat here from Andre Trek. He sends 25 Brazilian reais. I'd like to see Tales of Destiny PS2 if possible. Tales of Legendia would also be interesting in case you don't have Destiny. Do you have Legendia or Destiny?
I do have Legendia, but let's see here.
RPGs are a bit tough because they take a long time to get in.
Yeah, that's kind of funny because as an old person now, I find that I'm playing racing games and fighting games because it just
I do the same.
Starts up fast.
I play mostly fighting
So,
games
okay.
every day.
I am, even though it's an RPG, I'm going to throw in Valkyrie Profile 2 quickly because this game supports 480p, supports widescreen. We're not going to get far in this, but I can load it up.
All right. Well, while you put that in, it's one of these again. Sandy B sends £10. And would you rather have a magic
Oh,
cupboard
no!
in a kitchen that ran out of chocolate spread, or a special bath that always was at the perfect temperature, no matter how long you stayed in? It's one of these again.
Those aren't so bad. I go for the first one.
Would want a magic cupboard in the kitchen that never ran out of chocolate spread? Specifically chocolate spread.
I mean,
It's not going to be good for your health, John.
that's true. Okay, I'll go with the bath then.
All right.
Oh, shoot. I need, let me plug in. I'm using because of, I can't show it here. It's not long enough, but I need a DualShock 2. Which...
This is the first game that actually complains about the kind of controller you have. I've seen.
Yeah, exactly. It can't find the DualShock 2, so please connect it to controller port 1.
I guess it uses that
and
pressure
press
sensitive
circle.
stuff. While you insert that, Sir Link since
I did miss out, though. I should have plugged in the Negicon for the Ridge Racer.
Oh, yes. Well,
But anyway, go ahead.
for another day. Sterling sends $5 and says, would it be possible to throw DLSS open source at this problem without a ton of overhead?
Oh, sorry. Was that a DLSS?
I mean, that I don't think that's feasible here. I mean, you're familiar with DLSS, what NVIDIA is doing with their tensor cores on their GPUs, right, Mike? The machine learning stuff?
I'm ashamed to say, no, I'm like so far. This sounds, well, it probably shouldn't be surprising for me to say, but I'm like so far behind the times that I'm like, things in the late 2000s sound new to me.
So, essentially, though, NVIDIA throws a lot of processing power at this problem, I guess, and it has, this isn't something I think you could integrate, definitely not into an FPGA-based product like this. I mean, conceivably, you could do something like input. No, I don't know. I don't see, it would have to be done on the PC side, and I don't see what would be feasible there. It would be interesting to throw DLSS at something, but the thing is, DLSS requires information to, the internal rendering pipeline essentially to work. You can't just throw machine learning obviously can be used to upscale imagery, but it wouldn't be the same as DLSS. So not really feasible there.
Chris Fratz sends $5. John, Audi, and Mike, the trio is here. Thank you, Mike, for making the 5X. I just got my tracking number and can't wait to get mine in the mail.
Oh, thank you very much. It's we're still going through them. I think thank you everyone for their patience.
Oops, so it looks like I need to actually reboot the game and hold. So on PS2 games, to get 480p, you have to hold triangle and X at the same time. So let me try that.
Yeah, I think there's only a few games like Gran Turismo that actually let you do in the menu. But the holding thing at the startup is kind of frustrating.
It's the same on GameCube. You have to hold B for some
locked.
reason. I don't.
Yeah.
Oops. Oh.
You held it too early, I guess. Hold it now. While you hold those buttons, David sends another $5.
Well, thanks,
so
David.
The prophecy became true. I'd throw money at a specific PS3 upscaler. Millennials Generation Z are a new market. Love the 2X for my Genesis, by the way.
Aha, here we go.
Thank you.
Progressive. Changing modes. Hi. Do it. There we go. So now we're in input is 480p. How about that?
There you go.
So just what we were looking for. We're going to do generic 16:9 sampling because currently you don't have any. So it's not. So like in this case, actually, this is something I've noticed as well. When you're inputting 480p, there's no way to get like a proper widescreen output currently. The generic 16:9 sampling. You see what's going on there? So this is fixable.
That's a good question.
On my,
I
you're.
think based on the.
Oh.
You guys hear me?
You're cutting out a little bit. Oh, his internet's slowing down. Technical difficulties. I think my son is stealing your bandwidth.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think he tapped into Mike's connection.
Do you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. If from the looks of it, it looks like you're in 480. You're in the underscan mode. So the underscan mode is actually the one that's kind of unique.
Oh,
The
okay. Let's look
the
at this.
16.9 mode actually is, you can call it optimal sampling for 858 by 480 pixels, which is the standard timing format used by most 480p devices. If you go into the 1080 other modes, it is more suited to the actual screen and the aspect ratio controls work. The underscan mode was really added because people wanted quote unquote 960p for captures.
Sure.
So it made sense to make the sampling more pixel perfect.
Understood.
And then post capture, you could rescale it.
So now we're using the 1440p mode here, and that looks great.
Yeah, now it looks perfect.
So that's exactly what we wanted.
Yep.
And yeah, so and actually I don't remember how to enable it. I have to look it up, but Valkyrie Profile actually supports a 1080i output mode, specifically this Japanese version. It doesn't render 1080i the game itself, but it is slightly higher resolution. But anyway, let's fire this up.
And let's go to some more super chats. Joe P sends $5 and asks Mike, does the 5X Pro detect sampling phases of consoles such as a 3DO?
3DO, not yet. Someone is actually sending me a 3DO, so I could probably add that in.
Actually, Mike, I will
that
note if you use the 240p mode, and we'll actually test it here in a moment if you want. I think it works fine if you have a system capable of 240p. It's more like by default the 3DO only does interlaced on most models. But anyway, go ahead.
I see. The 3DO, does that even have RGB output? By
not natively, no. I'm using a modded one here, but
for sure. So yeah, I mean, if I could get the timings, that could be added. One of the interesting, I could definitely add it. It's just one of those things where there's no documentation, I think, right yet. But I'll look at it once I get the console in. Kind of an interesting beast, because on Twitter I've heard a lot of people, I don't know if they're joking or not, but it's like, hey, I'm finally playing my 3DO, and it's nice. That's always nice to hear.
I love my 3DO. Like, it's a super underrated console.
Yeah, me too.
So,
and
I'll be looking forward to that.
Before we continue talking, just gotta say, these visuals look insane. I forgot how good Valkyrie Profile 2 looks. Look at this.
Yes.
This is crazy. Like, Tri-Ace was doing like magic on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
But anyway, the 3DO. We can actually fire that up this afternoon because I have it sitting right here. But mine's RGB modded, and it does have the 240p switch. It should be noted that some Japanese units of have the FC1, they actually do have a 240p toggle built in, but most units do not, and it requires modifications.
Yeah.
So it's 3DO is interesting.
We have a super chat from Dennis J. Sends $5 and says, Mike is such a cool son of a bee with a great voice for radio. Also, John, is there secret DF tech in that box that got delivered? What's in the box, John?
Let's find out. I actually do not know what's in the box. I think it might be something from possibly from Limited Run. So I had some stuff coming from them, but let's find out.
While you open that, Reluctant Hero sends $4.99. Good morning from California. I've been thoroughly enjoying the RetroTINK 5X. Upscaling Gamecube from 480p has been mind-blowing. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So...
Did you fall into the box?
Oh, yeah. Let me climb back out. Okay, so I got three things. First of all, small package. I got a Fight and Rage for the Switch from them, which is a really good game, by the way. I couldn't pass up getting a physical copy of Paper Beast from Eric Shahi.
Yes.
That's really cool. And then this last one is just absurd. Um, it's this gigantic Streets of Rage 4 box.
Oh,
don't-
nice. Yeah, yeah.
So we'll see how this goes. So yeah, it's not quite Crazy Frog Racer, but I don't have to do.
Well, not many things can be.
Anyway,
Chris
I'm in the
Pratt
game
sends
here, by the
two-
way, and now you can see 60 frames per second action going on.
Yeah, it looks incredible. But Chris Pratt says $2 and in before the pickle rich magnets. That's
The pickle rich magnets.
that's from our Discord. So if you're a Patreon member, you can go to our Discord, and there is a lot of rich action going on in there.
It is rich indeed. My goodness,
on
though,
rich.
Valkyrie Profile 2. This game, what an amazing looking game. The PlayStation 2 here, they really understood this hardware.
Yeah, this looks
Look
like
at that. Even look at the
shame to
reflections
say I've
there.
never played it, but yeah, this holds up really well.
I can't believe they even have reflections on the ground. That's cool.
Yeah, it's amazing looking.
Oh, is that the weapon shop? I don't think I can buy anything yet. Yeah, but anyway, this is can I get a longsword? Oh. Okay, cool.
Got $5 from Oso Nightmare. Great
True,
stream,
a
guys.
true nightmare.
Mike, the RetroTINK is a fantastic piece of hardware. Also, my wife is a Giants fan, so I legally have to boo to the Padres. This is sports.
Oh, thank you very much.
Anyway, well, I probably don't want to spend too much time getting into Valkyrie Profile 2, as it is an RPG and quite lengthy. But we did get to sample. That's kind of what we're doing today. Obviously, this is just a smorgasbord of sampling different games on different hardware. Let's see if I can go to that first field, though. Actually,
Me sent
Skip
$1
this.
with no comment.
oh well, thank you, me. Hello, me. Meet the real me. Okay.
Oh, John, we should answer this. I think you answered earlier, but it's not a super chat, but I just caught it. What card is John using for capturing the 5X? Just let's refresh people's minds here.
Okay. So currently, for the stream specifically, I'm using the AverMedia 4K something or other. You have the same card in your machine, right, Audi?
Yep.
And then, normally though, I like to use the Atomus products, so the Atomus Shogun, and yeah, so that's pretty much what I've got in here.
Yeah, I did try it with my Elgato, and it was kind of... I have an
But anyway.
Elgato 60S, is it? And
That's right.
some of it worked, and sometimes it didn't connect, but I think that's the problem with my Elgato, actually. So, what's your feelings on the Elgato stuff anyway, Mike?
Yeah, to be completely fair, my judgment is basically based on what I believe is to be their older stuff. I've never tried out their newer stuff, which I've heard could be quite good, but the older stuff gave me a lot of trouble. And to be fair, it's not completely their fault, because the older RetroTINKs didn't have a frame rate conversion, so it would output 60.1 hertz for the SNES, and it would pass all that through, but they would never work, and that was quite frustrating for me and a lot of other people when other capture cards had a lot more tolerance. And the other thing that kind of just drove me nuts is that, irrespective of whatever you're feeding it, my HD60S just always crashes.
Yep.
And to the point where cycling the USB port didn't work. The only fix for that really was to reboot the computer. So suffice to say, I was quite frustrated with that line of device.
That's my problem with the Elgato
Yeah.
60 right now. It's just, it crashes. I keep, changing the USB ports. I have to reboot my computer. It blue screens sometimes even. So it's just a
Yeah.
nightmare. So I just use the AverMedia, basically, with anything RetroTINK.
Yeah. I've had pretty good experiences with the Magewell HDMI Gen 2. I think that was a bit more expensive, but I think you can find it used for about the same price on eBay. And generally for something like with no moving parts, like a capture card, I don't mind buying used.
No. And then, yeah, I was seeing that on Twitter as well, that people were saying that card worked pretty well. So, Rupert Farrow says 10 I think it's the Singapore dollar, but I might be wrong. But he would like to
Whoa.
see Eco get John to move around.
All
Eco,
right.
yeah, that would be a good test.
Let me so I'm gonna switch to output res again. That's the card doesn't like that. Because I wish there was a way to do direct resolution selection because some cards, some capture solutions don't like certain resolutions, and
Right.
cycling between them can cause issues. Which is kind of what I'm getting now. Let's wait and see.
We have
Oh,
five
I
Canadian
see this.
dollars from Schrodinger's cat. They're spelled very differently, but I'm not going to say it. Question from Mike
Under.
G. Will we ever see a modern tank that can do 4 or 5x for 720 1080p when it comes to the 360 PS4 generation? So I'm guessing he's asking like way in the future if you're gonna keep doing a modern tank.
That is a very good question. I would like to, but I think to be honest, for the past few years, I've kind of moved pretty fast. But I think I'd have to move slower from now on, just because the complexity of these devices is getting exponentially harder. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of my time, in the foreseeable future, is probably just going to be trying to maintain this one because there's bug fixes and there's probably stuff that should be added. So it's I would say it's possible, but probably not fast. And I think maybe someone else might do it. To be honest.
The polyester pimp sends $2. How does Flipnik look?
We might have to find out. But first, as you can see, Mike, I'm playing around with the 3DO here. And what do we? Oh yeah, it's doing that thing at the top there. There isn't. So the way this RGB mod works, it does. It seems to give upscalers issues.
Mm.
So this might be one of
I
those
see.
cases we need to look at this in more detail.
Yeah, it actually looks a lot like what happens on the Neo Geo AES. The MVS was fine, or at least some revisions. So I think it's one of those things where I just have to take a look and see it. Again, unfortunately, one of the challenges with this stuff is that old consoles, I don't know why the developers chose to do it. It's probably cost. Usually, it just goes back to cost. They just output weird signals, and looking at it today, you just have to figure out workarounds.
Exactly. Okay, so yeah, this is just pure nonsense getting into the 3DO. By the way, I don't know if you guys can see, but at the top of the 3DO image, there's that yellow line followed by the gray line, right? That stupid thing, that is actually coming from the analog output. And so with the way most Sony Trinitron professional monitors work, if you have things deep in the overscan region that are bright, it actually reflects back into the glass. So you get this like weird distortion effect around the border. So typically you don't want stuff overscanned way outside of the edge of the screen. That line does that. So when you play 3DO on one of these professional monitors with this mod at least, you always get sort of like a glowing artifact along the top because that's stuck way up there in the overscan region. I don't know why that's there, but it is. I must find the way though. Let's try a different That's looking pretty good though right there.
Yeah, not too bad.
Are you in the N64 sampling mode?
Yeah.
Is that the correct mode for 3DO?
See, that's
Or
the thing
is that the only one that works?
Don't know. That's the one that was looking best. That's the thing.
Oh, interesting.
But again, this is modded 3DO in 320 by 240 mode. So, yeah, I don't know. You have to play. So this is interesting. You've not really played around much with 3DO on here, have you? So this is like kind of a.
Definitely not. Yeah, 3DO I've never played with, to be honest.
So yeah, this is what we get. This is what happens when you don't test anything, and it actually looks pretty good, I'd say, to be honest. Except for that one issue on the main menu, but I think that's something else. That's something I've encountered in general with this 3DO.
Yeah, that might be the.
But anyway, we should throw in some other stuff. What was next on the list, Audie? Do you remember?
There was Clinoa 2, and then go back and look a little bit. Someone said Eco, Flipnik.
And
Yeah, I think that was for the I think that was the majority of the Bushido Blade, Rival Schools. Those were the ones that were requested.
okay, well let's I can pop in Clinoa real quick.
Yeah, well, too.
Yep.
So Triang 3L sends 200 rubles. It says, does it have the glorious AMD Fidelity FX contrast adaptive sharpening?
Alas, no. And it's good to see you here, by the way. If you recall, Triangle, he's one of the developers on the Xbox 360 emulator on the PC, which is quite good. We played GoldenEye, the 360 version, via his emulator, and it worked extremely well on stream.
Yep.
So
that is quite an accomplishment.
Definitely.
Yeah, amazing talent.
Okay, so oh yeah, let me
We got $5 from Notary.
Oh, it's 4DI, so this doesn't matter.
Yeah. Hello, John and Audi, and congrats to Mike for launching an amazing product. I'm loving my 5X with the LG CX, SNES, N64, and GameCube look excellent.
Oh, thank you very much. And I've heard that TV pop up a lot. So I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, it's what I'm using as well, and it's definitely one of the best TVs on the market, I think, right now.
Yeah.
Oh, this Clinoa too. This is an interesting one to test actually, because between every loading screen, it changes the resolution. Like we just saw it between the different screens. You'll see that little bit of flash. If you play this on an OSSC, you get dropouts, and it's a FrameMeister as well.
Right.
So just when switching between the different screens.
And here it's instant.
I don't know. I don't know. I have multiple saves floating around. So yeah, right there, you could see it switch the resolution. There it goes again. So I never understood why it did that. That's a very strange design choice on the part of the developers. But there it is.
Probably never saw it on a CRT.
Maybe.
No, it's weird. But this game, I love the way this game looks.
Yeah, it's a great game. Clinoa in general.
But you could see how in a lot of other scalers, that issue right there would be really frustrating, where just loading into a map, it drops the sync twice, basically.
Yeah. We have 50 kroners from Andy Lon. Hey guys, love the stream. Does the industry-wide shortages affect the production of the 5X, or will they soon be back in stock?
Oh, Mike.
Oh, yeah, it's a good question. It's been a mess. You know, we were lucky that we placed the order for the first run last year, which I think before the shortages, so we were able to get that. But then we were trying to make a next run, and we just couldn't, because a lot of the key parts one of the key parts was out of stock until April of 2022. So in March we had to do an emergency redesign, and that was a huge pain. But we did an emergency redesign. We bought up a lot of stock of things that we thought could run out. Mm-hmm. So between the two, hopefully everything is going to be okay for the rest of the year. Our goal is to really have some inventory, so it's easy for people to get whenever they want. Hopefully we'll get there. But we were lucky that we were able to redesign that, find enough stock of that part, and then buy it up. But yeah, it's a pain, because right now I think in about a few days I have to get that revision. It's a minor revision that doesn't affect functionality, but as with anything, I'm gonna have to spend a lot of time testing the revision after I spent a lot of time testing the first one, just so I can keep production going. It's a challenge.
Can you say what specific part of the unit that you're talking about?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's there's a few things. The microprocessor was low stock, but we were able to buy enough of that. Same for the FPGA, but there's a key chip, the clock chip that generates the HDMI timing. That's something you really couldn't find a drag and drop placement, so we had to find an alternative for that in March, and then buy it all up and then redesign the thing. So it was not fun.
Yeah,
that sounds very frustrating.
It seems like this is hitting everyone so hard, the shortage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is. It's nuts.
So hopefully...
It's a time when a lot of big products have launched as well. So
yeah.
And everybody's wanting parts. It's difficult. By the way, I forgot here. I also remember when the game switches, when you go between the indoor and outdoor sections, it also can change the resolution briefly. So that can also have signal dropouts. There was a way to solve this on the FrameMeister. I can't remember what it was, but there was something you could do to fix that. It was kind of a hacky thing, but it worked. But it was still kind of a problem with this specific game.
I saw a lot of FrameMeisters on eBay suddenly after this RetroTINK came out.
You know,
it was kind of funny. It went from 4 listings to I think 25.
The thing is, though, is like the FrameMeister, it's an old product now, right? I think it's at least 10 years old or more. It was an amazing thing for its time.
Oh yeah, when it came out, yeah.
Sure. And you know what? It's still a good product. I would say it's still a very nice product. You know, most of its issues are just quality of life stuff, and that people have learned over time that people want, and that was designed before a lot of this stuff was really figured out or demanded from the users. So I think they did a great job there.
I mean, it's still an amazing product. I would say if you look closely, the de-interlacer is better than what's on the RT5X. It uses a commercial custom chip to do it, so the output is a little bit smoother. And really the biggest things are just the dropouts. But if you don't play those games, it doesn't really matter. It's a great product.
Exactly.
And out of the box, the image is kind of bad. But then you've got people like Firebrand building profiles, and after. So I got a FrameMeister in. I first powered it up, and it was like, this looks terrible. I'm like, how are you guys playing with this? But then you load up the profiles, and it looks really nice.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And before the profiles, I mean, I used to have fun adjusting it, and there's some fun stuff you can do with the sample rate. I remember, like, if you were aggressive with the H sample rate, you could still retain sharp pixels, I think, but you would kind of blur out the image in a weird way. It's been years since I looked at this, but it was basically my solution for overcoming like dithering in some like Sega Genesis games, for instance, like because it kind of simulated the look of composite slightly.
Oh, cool.
With an RGB signal. So it was a weird but interesting solution that worked by kind of manipulating the controls available on that unit. So it was a good product. I like that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of curious that Microsoft never really pushed that line forward, or even the product itself. I know it's got firmware updates, but looking at the hardware, it seems like there's still quite a bit of untapped potential.
I feel like they missed that boat somehow, because they were really doing all these kind of products before this stuff really took off. Because essentially, I mean, as you can attest, the only reason that all of these scalers have become an issue is people want to play old video games on modern screens, and modern screens do not like that. They don't handle these old analog signals well. Out of the box, even if you can even connect something to a modern screen out of the box, and it's becoming increasingly difficult or limited to composite, it usually looks just awful.
Yep, for sure.
So this type of device is needed to make this work.
Yeah. Chris Fratt sends $2 and says, I wouldn't mind seeing Res if you have it.
Well, yeah, we can go ahead and shift over.
It was also Tales of Legendia.
Oh, he said Destiny.
Destiny. No, it was either Destiny or Legendia.
Oh, well, I have Tales of Destiny here. We can pop that in.
All right.
I'm just making a big mess in here with all this.
That's how it goes.
I also want to test out I can't do it on the stream, but the downscaling function, which is pretty fun. So I have a couple of these little HDMI to YPBPR adapters, and if you can run an HDMI device into this, run this into the RetroTINK via component, and then take the component or the HDMI from the RetroTINK into another one of these, then you can output it to your CRT and get a nice 240p image. It's
Corey's all about this.
Corey did like an hour-long video on this. He just went nuts. It's very funny. I love it.
I must admit, I don't personally see much.
Here
enjoyment.
I think Corey's video, he was just having a lot of fun, but he missed some of the key reasons for this. Like, I've been using an Extron unit for this in the past. But the main thing the reason you would want this specifically is for games like, say, Sonic Mania or any of the modern pixel art games. The artwork is pretty much designed around the same pixel resolutions as classic games. So when you put that at 240p on a CRT, it looks super authentic. In Sonic Mania in particular on the PC, it even has an aspect ratio override, so you can display it at correct 4:3 output. So it looks pixel perfect, just like the original games when using this technique. It's very, very cool. Oh, and by the way, this Tales of Destiny here is it's a really nice looking game on the PS2. I forgot 3D backgrounds with sprites.
Yeah. Someone just announced they're doing a translation of this version.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So people who want to wait for that, it's coming apparently. EBChill2 sends $5 and says, Audi, you haven't requested Crazy Frog Racer yet. No, I'm saving that for a specific stream.
Yeah, well, that will make its appearance at some point. Have you tested that, Mike? Crazy Frog Racer 1 or 2?
No, I haven't. What? Sorry, I'm ashamed to say, what system's that for?
Oh, you shouldn't be. You should
ashamed
not be
to say that.
ashamed.
You should be very happy that you're saying that.
It's kind of a joke.
Live in ignorance, my friend.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. It was a thing for a while, we'll just say.
It's still a thing for us.
I was gonna say if you look up Crazy Frog on YouTube, you'll find it, but maybe you shouldn't.
Interesting. It's one of those games.
Well, and nowadays I think like the Google algorithm is applying Richard Ledbetter to Crazy Frog, so there's this overlap now. So his career is in a good place.
Exactly.
Triangle sends another 200 rubles and says, "Love you all, and thank you, Mike, for the highest quality retro pixels."
Oh, thank you very much.
Are we looking at some kind of early dynamic resolution usage here? Well, I'm guessing he's talking about Clinoa or like one of the games we were playing.
Oh, no. So Clinoa isn't using dynamic resolution. It's literally just changing its output between the different screens. The resolution of the in-game 3D rendering is the same across the board. It's just for whatever reason, like that loading transition screen is a different resolution. I can't even begin to imagine why they did that. I'm sure there was a technical reason for it, but it's very strange. Although I think the worst example of changing resolutions, I don't know, have you checked out Resident Evil 2 on N64, Mike?
Yeah, that was one of the tests. That was definitely one of the test games, and I'm actually ashamed to say I could never play that game. I don't know how to play it. Like, I always get shot, and I can't shoot back, and I'm like, what the hell is this? But yeah, I tested that one, and to make sure nothing drops, because that's a bad offender.
Oh, I have to go find a weapon first. That's the problem.
Norris3942 sends $5 and says, I just want to say thanks for showing Clinoa. I wanted to play it for a while, but the resolution switching has made that a nightmare. Not anymore with the RetroTINK.
Exactly. So I got 20 guild. Gold, whatever you call it. So I have to find a sword somewhere here. It's been a while since I played this. Nope. Can't go in there.
RPGs.
I can move the boxes. It's like, look at that. Woohoo! How cool is that? It's like playing Boxel.
I see someone just mentioning... Oh, actually, right after I saw the regular post, someone took a super chat and asked the same thing. Fried Zombie 4 says from $5. Can we talk about the resolution switching? Like, how about Silent Hill? So yeah, Silent Hill was another one of those cases where if you went into the menu from the game, it would drop out.
That's
on
right.
Like the OSSC and whatnot for several seconds because it was a high-res menu.
Apple gummy.
And
yes,
that is not an issue anymore on the RetroTINK.
Of course, Chrono Cross as well.
Shown on other videos, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so the downside to this, and I guess I don't think it's a huge downside. I think it's well worth it. But essentially, the way that works is you're drawing out to a frame buffer, right? You're doing triple buffering. So you can kind of So even though the game itself is kind of changing resolutions, you're not changing the output to the screen. But there is that other mode that you offer that's not triple buffered, where it does actually put out the correct refresh rate.
Yeah, that's right. So by default, it uses the triple buffer mode, so you've got the video chip taking data in and filling the memory or the frame buffer, and then you've got the output, which is reading it out at a constant rate. So if it doesn't get data, it'll just read whatever back the previous, whatever is the last frame it got. And that's why it's able to keep going on. The drawback, of course, is because you have to have buffering. It increases the lag to about. It cycles between a quarter of a frame to 1 1/4 of a frame, and it changes. It cycles between that because the rates don't match exactly. So there is that added latency. And for smooth scrolling, if you're looking at Super Mario World, right, where just something's scrolling at a constant rate, occasionally you'll see it quick because it's got to drop a frame or it's got to repeat a frame. There's frame lock where the two input and output follow exactly, but then, of course, if you have a drop, then everything drops. The upside is there's no judder, and it's a quarter frame of lag, roughly. That's always constant.
So Mike, there is another question for you here.
Before we continue, I am going to pop in just real quick while we have the PS2 out. I'm going to put in this copy of Downhill Domination, specifically because it's the 50 Hz PAL version. And I haven't actually shown any gameplay at 50 Hz. And I think, our European audience might be curious to see what that looks like. So let's do that.
True. Very true. But yeah, so David is asking you, Mike, you keep getting shot but can't shoot back in Resident Evil 2. I think what he's referring to there, that Resident Evil 2 doesn't have enemies that shoot much.
Oh.
Yes. I couldn't figure out how to shoot the zombies or whatever. The zombies are always attacking me, and I could never figure. At least on the N64, I could never figure out how to attack them back.
So yeah, if you're playing Resident Evil, basically you have to ready your weapon. You hold a button and you ready your weapon, and then you hit another button to fire it. But if you don't ready your weapon, then it doesn't. You can't do anything. But yeah, here we go. So this is going to be 570. Yep, there it is. So it's 50 Hertz.
Good old memories.
And yeah, currently this just has generic timings because you haven't done the sampling for PAL stuff yet. But that seems perfectly feasible in time. But even still, this is interlaced anyway, so it's fine.
This is a 576i.
Yeah. EMK Iron Fist sends $5 and says, Rogue Squadron on N64 also does a lot of rest switching. I learned that the hard way when I was leaving it on, and it crashed my Mini 2X on pass-through mode.
Oh, right. Forgot about that. That does... N64 has a fair amount of that in its later games, especially once you get the expansion pack in.
Yeah.
So it should be noted, we're showing this at 50 Hertz, right? This stream on YouTube is obviously 60 Hertz. It's 60 frames per second. So there is going to be additional visible judder here because this is converting. So are we actually outputting? Does the Tink is putting out 1080p 50 or whatever resolution output at 50 Hertz, or is it upping that, or is it converting this to 60 Hertz? I actually don't know off the top of my head here.
It's outputting. So there's a variant of 1080p 50 with slightly different timings, but it's designed for 50 hertz content, and that's what it's doing. Mm-hmm. If it could output 60 hertz, but I'm not sure you'd.
No, you would not want that.
Complete mess.
I'm just double checking before I said that. So yes, if you're actually running this on an actual TV that accepts 50 hertz, which most do actually, HD TVs.
They should all. Yeah.
You'll actually get more correct frame persistence, but because we're actually doing the conversion here this way, it is going to look a little more juddery than it actually would because of that. So, but you can still get an idea of what
it looks pretty good.
Looks like. It does.
I think the capture process is probably doing some sort of frame interpolation that wouldn't be possible on the Tink 5X itself. Mm-hmm. So I think that helps a bit.
Oh yeah, all that's effectively happening is that by converting it to 60 hertz like this, it's just inserting duplicate frames So that's where the judder comes from. And, that's normal. But you wouldn't get this on just a normal screen. Also, you notice I have it cropped here somewhat. It's because these PAL games actually put out a slightly higher resolution image. So yeah, see, this is cropped. This is the full 1080p output image of the game running. But let's see here. But still, I'm going to zoom in just so we get a larger image here. This game is cool, by the way. You look how steep these hills are. It's just crazy.
I never play this. Was it Codemasters game?
No. Well, they published it in Europe. This is from Incognito Entertainment, so the guys that did Twisted Metal Black.
Right.
So I think it runs on that engine.
Huh.
They
This
also
looks
did
pretty,
War of the Monsters.
Looks very smooth and fast, huh?
Oh, except for when you smack into the rock like that.
Right, yeah, well.
I haven't played this for a while. I don't remember all the moves.
That looks like something where if you
can
happen to, you'd probably just die.
You can punch and kick in this, like Road Rash style, and do tricks, I think.
We got W. Bowman sends €2 and says bespoke.
Yes. That's a very common phrase or word, I guess, singular word on Digital Foundry. Thanks to our Lord and Master Richard Ledbetter.
Yes.
The man who started this entire thing way back in, I guess, 2004. But it wasn't
Yes.
it was not what it is now, we'll just say. Wow.
Yeah, for the Patreon followers we have, I think there's still an idea to do kind of an Origins video on Digital Foundry and its members. It's just a matter of having time, because right now we're doing so many things at once.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
including the next episode of DF Retro soon.
yes, that we're working on very hard, using the Tink, actually, quite
For
extensively.
For some of it.
some of it,
Yeah. So,
but yeah,
plays a
we've been
big
using
role.
that, and will be playing a big role moving forward.
Exactly.
And then right after this stream, the Patreon exclusive Q&A, the retro Q&A that you and I recorded a couple of days ago.
Oh yeah, that's going to
It's
go up.
over 2 hours long of you and I answering
Questions.
questions.
Oof.
Uh,
that was a bad turn.
Man, it's definitely a don't try this at home type of
yeah,
type of
right.
This
Know
is
with that
cool.
warning.
Hey, exactly. But this is good. This is a chance to see 50 hertz of 576i in action. It looks pretty all right.
It looks pretty good. Me sends another $1, by the way.
Oh, thank you, me. I don't know who this mysterious me is, but I like the cut of his jib. Oh man. So what should we? Why I'm still slamming down the mountain here? You guys should tell me what I'm playing next.
Me think.
Were there other requests, or do you want to request something?
I mean,
Another-
from the requests we got, there was still either Bushido Blade or Rival Schools, but that's a different console.
No, we can switch consoles. We can do
we
any
switch console?
any
Huh?
console.
Do you have?
I
do you
don't.
have that game?
I don't have either of those though. I only have Bushido
Okay.
Blade 2, which is the lesser one.
Right.
I don't. I want to get a copy of Rival Schools. I have Project Justice on Dreamcast, but I don't actually have the original Rival
Yeah,
Schools.
I have it here. We'll do another stream one day with the Tink and then do like some Rival Schools and stuff. That's fine. What about the Bouncer?
The Bouncer? I can put that in. Sure.
Yeah, why not? It's an early game. It's fun to look at these early PS2 games and see how they hold up with the Tink.
The Bouncer. It's a
I
beautiful
love
game.
the Bouncer. I love the Bouncer. I play that so much, and I know it got kind of scrutinized when it came out, but I played it over and over again and leveled up my characters and had a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay,
I
but
know
anyway.
I know
Go
there's
ahead.
just a question in the chat, and I'm actually kind of curious about it because I'm about to, after this tonight, I was actually going to test this out, but since Mike is here, I'm going to ask you about it. VHS upscaling and capturing. Can you talk a little bit about using the Tink for like VHS capturing and whatnot?
That is a very good question. Admittedly, I haven't done it too much. I've abused it by fast forwarding and putting bad tapes in it just to make sure it works. But I personally haven't done that much. I plan on doing it, but it seems like it's working out quite well for a lot of people.
Yeah, I've seen some
Because the
mention of
triple
it.
buffer,
Yeah, exactly.
the
So
triple buffer really makes it immune.
I have a lot of tapes that I picked up in Japan over the years of like game concerts and commercial tapes, like just with video game commercials on it and stuff. So I have a lot of things that needs to be actually digitized because it's never been digitized before. And now that I have the Tink, I finally get a chance to do it. So I'm actually gonna
Really
try
glad
that
to
out
hear that.
tonight. Yeah, I'll let you know how that goes
Awesome,
actually.
awesome.
So,
We'll probably
I
also
think
use the Ting for some laser disc
oh, we have a
extraction.
lot. I have a lot of laser discs
Yes, you
that needs
do.
to be ripped. So, and we'll talk about that on DF Retro coming up.
Absolutely.
Triangle sends another 200 rubles. I know. I don't know how much 200 rubles is in US dollars, but I just hope you're not bankrupt by sending us so much. So I assume like it's 20 bucks. This bike game for some reason reminds me of Serious Sam 4, where you can hit every tree. Seriously, every single tree on the entire 128 by 128 map on the bike, but on foot walk through them. I never played Serious Sam 4, but
I've
can you
not
hit
played
all the
4.
trees in
Apparently
Serious
you
Sam?
can. I've not played
Alright.
4 because I heard it was a buggy mess and kind of forgot about it after as a result.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, this game is extremely field rendered.
Someone's asking you to turn the music back on because they want to hear the bouncer's music.
Oh, is it too quiet?
I think you turned it off because of the licensed music earlier.
Oh yeah, I see it on popping up. I don't know if they can hear it, but I've turned it up a little bit. This does have that cool song though right away.
Yes.
I like how they kind of seems to like use some kind of like early ragdoll.
It does. Yeah, yeah. It has some kind of limited ragdolling. It has some blur you can see. And I remember when the first trailer for this was shown, it was not this, but it was showing like this. It was just a bull shot trailer. It was just footage. It wasn't gameplay, but it was all this interactive element of chairs and
Oh
tables being broken,
yeah,
all that stuff. And
it
then
all
this
got
scene is basically one of the few scenes where you get anything like that. So I think this was another reason why when it came out, people were kind of let down because in the end, it kind of turns into a open arena fighter with not
yeah.
too much interactivity.
It could have been better for sure, and I don't like the way it always cuts to that transition screens between every single stage. But it was an amazing looking game at the time.
Absolutely. And really fun multiplayer. I played a lot of multiplayer on this.
Okay.
Let's see. Did I miss any? No. $5 from Ozone Nightmare. Okay, I'm pretty sure John has Beautiful Joe, so I'd like to see the magnificent art style of that in action.
I
Thanks for another great
Do
stream,
have Beautiful
gentlemen.
Joe? Was there a
PS2 or the
Nightmare?
GameCube?
Yeah, I was gonna say I have both PS2 or GameCube. You make the call.
But you have
Watch.
to pay for it.
You gotta pay. No, I'm just kidding. Just leave another comment in there.
Yeah, I'll keep a lookout for it. Nomura designed Bouncer. Yeah, when I met Nomura a few years ago, I sat down with him and we talked about some of the games they had worked on. And I'm not a big Kingdom Hearts fan, and I actually don't like Final Fantasy VII much.
Oh, Audi.
Please do not come at me. But one game we did talk a lot about was the Bouncer, and yeah, he actually has a lot of love for this game. I think it was a little bit of disappointment, maybe, that they didn't get to continue these characters. So,
Yeah, they clearly put a lot of time into this world building and kind of designs. But I mean, this was kind of like co-developed with Square. I mean, this was a Dream Factory
yeah, it
game.
was Dream Factory.
Oh. And they
But
went off to do Kakuto Chojin after this.
Yes, Kakuto Trojan, which was recalled.
Oh, dude, we could totally play Kakuto Chojin on the Xbox.
We should. Under maybe. Oh, did we lose Mike?
Oh, uh-oh, did we lost Mike?
He's coming back, I'm
He's
sure.
coming back.
Sorry about that, guys. I dropped out for a bit.
No problem. We were just talking about
Yes.
Kakuto Trojan.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how it is
So-
when you do things live. Okay, so it looks like Joe has asked for the GameCube version. So yeah. Let's see here.
So that would be a progressive scan game on GameCube.
It would.
So Mike, while he's doing all this, how long did it take to kind of R&D the Tink 5?
It's a good question. We started, I think, last summer about. So I think we started last summer, and then most of the hardware was designed by November. And then from November, I was honestly trying to shoot for a just Christmas release, but that was just that was not going to happen. That was ridiculous. And then I think from November to about March is when we actually redid the entire firmware for this to go from something that was a line multiplier like the OSSC to a full frame buffer device with the de-interlacer. So a little bit under a year, I'd say.
Oh, that's pretty quick still.
That is pretty good. Here we go. We are in. We've got Beautiful Joe running in progressive mode.
It's a pretty cool game. It's another game that's kind of a shame they haven't continued doing much with.
Yep, there we go. 480p. Yeah. There's a cut they made. So they got the two main Beautiful Joe games, but also you got stuff like Beautiful Joe Red Hot Rumble.
Yep, exactly.
Or wait.
Or
Oh, it's actually called Beautiful Joe Battle Carnival in Japanese. Okay.
yes. When this game was released, Capcom licensed a pro wrestler to take on the Beautiful Joe name, and he actually wrestled in the costume. So for two seasons, or two tours in Japan, there was a Beautiful Joe wrestler in Japan that was in like DDT and other.
That's crazy. I like it
It's
though.
it's in my book. Ego Mezzle sends us 2,500 of some currency.
Oh man.
Not sure why, but watching you guys play old video games makes me relax.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. I like to do this. It's just like hanging out, playing some games, going through them. And yeah, now we're testing out some 480p on the GameCube with the official Nintendo GameCube component cables.
Yes, which you have.
Which I think I originally bought those back in the day, actually, from Nintendo themselves. So I know they were not too common, but I had an HD TV back then, and when you would buy them, they would just come in like a baggie from Nintendo.
Yep.
They didn't. In Japan, there's a box, and I got those from Rich as well. But if you ordered them from America, it was in the U.S. It was literally just like a plastic bag. So.
Oh, did you have to special order it from Nintendo? Was it
Yeah.
source?
And you could buy it from Nintendo's online shop back then. And
Oh,
when you
interesting.
get it, it would just come in a baggie. There was no like official branding or box for it. It was clearly a product that they weren't intending to sell large quantities of.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
It was a very curious design decision to make that port digital. It's
yeah.
and then have such a complicated cable.
It's cool, but yeah, what a weird thing. It's very un-Nintendo. But the GameCube, I think, was Nintendo's best designed hardware to date. And also their most ambitious, and they've never really come close to matching that again.
What a great system. Fried Zombie 4 sends $5 and says, I vote for a little bit of Tactical Rescue Assault Group. Mission of Mercy, aka Hard Edge on PS1. Yeah, Hard Edge is interesting, but I don't know if we'll have time for that now. I have it.
I don't have that, actually.
Yeah. We'll definitely jump back. The Polyester Pimp is back with $5. John, how do PS2 S-Force games sound on your surround sound system? I'm getting a 2013 Panasonic Plasma and a 2.1 stereo, and I'm curious about the tech.
I feel like those were just they were just a stereo signal and kind of manipulating the audio in a way, kind of like Pro Logic. And they sound good, but they sounded good in stereo already. It was actually effective though. Silent Hill 2 especially made really good use of S-Force
Yeah.
and you actually did get the impression of sounds behind you, even just using 2 channels. So I was a big fan of that. Obviously, with the surround sound setup, you can actually enable like Pro Logic, and even though it's not a Pro Logic 2 compatible game, you can still kind of fake it a little bit more, and it seems to work fine with that. But yeah,
There was a question here, a super chat. That was actually a question I was going to ask Mike anyway. So, but Mike, from Patrick Welling, can you talk about briefly about how you got into electronics and engineering in general?
That's a good question. Yeah, I guess I suspect my story is probably the same for a lot of a lot of engineers. Is being an antisocial nerdy kid, you just spend your time playing with electronics and tearing stuff apart. So as a kid, I was just building radios and just playing with all these stupid electronics kits, and over time it's like, well, if I played with it so much as a kid, I might as well start studying it at school, and then just took on from there.
that's cool.
What,
Yeah.
what was the first few
Yeah.
things you made within the gaming realm then? Like,
The first thing was that Raspberry Pi hat.
Okay.
I think it was 2017, and for some reason, this was before I knew any of y'all. I didn't just by myself. I was like, how do I? Was just itching to play on a CRT, and I was like, okay, I just Google play old games, right? And then of course everyone says get a Pi. That's what you hear. So I got a Pi, and then I'm like, okay, this is cool, but how do I get it to CRT? And then I looked up the GERT VGA 666 hat. I'm like, okay, that's closer, but how can we get that into an actual standard def TV? And then that's how it all started.
Today would be get a Mister. It's just
Yes,
changed
that's true.
names. It's the same
It
thing.
would
right?
be. If I
Yeah.
started 1 or 2 years later, I might have not gotten to this because I would just get a Mister and get the VGA, get the analog I/O hat, and then it already has
Exactly.
component output to CRT, and then I would have been done.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because there was a problem to solve, you were driven to actually try to solve it, which led to this. But if that problem hadn't existed, you might not have bothered.
Exactly. I might just be, some guy quietly playing with my Mister today, right now, on my
Exactly.
Trinitron, and never would have bothered.
Let's see here. Somebody's
Yes,
right
now that
though.
you-
If you load this up on Swiss, you can actually improve image quality further, I believe.
Yes.
But I did not. I'm just running this straight off the disk normal.
Yeah, we're here to kind of showcase its out of the box compatibility, like Swiss and whatnot. Goes kind of a little bit deeper into things, but I'm sure you can make this look even better by doing so. So, but yeah, Mike, like now that you're in the community and whatnot, because I'm also kind of late arrival to the community, but yeah, how's your life kind of changed since you got into all this?
Oh yeah.
That's a good question. It's kind of like it's kind of taken over. It was
Right.
this thing was just kind of something that I was doing on the side on the nights and weekends for grins, but it's pretty much like become like an equivalent of a second full-time job.
Whew. Are
And
you
same for
enjoying
my
it
wife.
still?
She's yeah, I'm glad. I love it. It's
Whoops.
it's one of the most fulfilling things that I've done as an engineer. As weird as it sounds, more so than what I've been doing for the past 10 years. So I'm very much enjoying it. It's been a lot of work, but it's been stuff that I really love, and I suspect it's the same for all of us.
Definitely.
It's interesting because you live in Cali and you do like video game stuff, and my best friend, he lives up in Burbank, Raymond. He does a lot of the same things as you, but he also has 2 bunnies. So
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. When I saw,
let's talk about your bunnies.
yeah, what's up with the bunnies? They're awesome, right?
First started the Raspberry Pi hat. The whole thing was a joke. I didn't take any of it seriously. The very first one, that hat, and I was like, so what am I gonna call it? I'm just gonna call it after Tink because it had a rabbit named Tinky, and that name kind of stuck. There's another one named Melly. That's the white rabbit on the logo. Unfortunately, that one he passed away
Oh,
Very
year and a
sad.
half of it. But Yeah, it is. There's no deep meaning. It was just, hey, what's the easiest name I could find? Because I'm bad at naming things, and it kind of just went with it.
Also,
They make
you
for very interesting pets.
They're underrated.
Yes.
so another thing that's interesting is that you ship these products in these like small burlap bag kind of things, I guess. What material was that? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I honestly couldn't tell you. It's like maybe hemp or something. Yeah, it's hemp or something, but it figures just what's the what's something I could wrap this in
Oh
and
man, this is
protect it with some reasonable degree of care. Yeah, so
the
that's yeah. So we went to the bag. It's surprising. A lot of products come in similar bags like this. It's pretty nice, and you can always reuse it for something else, right?
Yeah, well, I gotta say the packaging for the Tink was fun to get. Like, it's very neat, and you have like the sticker with the bunnies on it, and it's very cute. I don't know if that's your touch or if it's your wife's touch, but
That's definitely my wife's touch,
yeah.
and she actually takes the time to iron bags that are wrinkled.
Mhm.
oh
Um,
wow.
to make sure it's nice in appearance. But yeah,
It's
I
fun.
think that's mostly her.
It caught the
it
attention
just
of
adds
my
to the
wife, who does
conversation.
packaging work for a large corporation now.
Yeah.
And she's always looking at different
Oh, no
packages and
kidding.
analyzing and taking to the office and thinking about it. And she was like, "Wait, what is that? Like they shipped it in that? That's interesting." And I don't think that they'll necessarily do anything with that in this company, but it's funny because that's it is a unique kind of design. Also, I'm having issues
From
with
John,
with the controls
John
here.
Nguyen.
Sorry, we keep
I'd
talking over one another, so go ahead.
Oh. Yeah, no problem. I'd like to suggest Sakura Wars on Saturn. Curious how the RetroTINK treats low-res animations such as the opening scene.
We can try that.
And then from Geoff Oxen, love what you guys do. Like the new direction you're going with the Patreon. Can't wait for Metro Exodus RT coverage for consoles.
Alex will definitely be getting to that soon enough.
I'm sure he will. And then Triangle is back for 100 rubles.
Anyway,
If Peach's rabbit is Mips, your one would be named Arm.
all right. So there is the request for Sakura Tyson.
Sakura Wars.
So
Yeah,
let's do it.
Sakura Tyson, which had a great revival on PS4. Except for the battle scenes. I didn't like that.
But I was having issues here with the GameCube's Wavebird. When I'm far enough away from the console and there's kind of stuff in the way, you get dropped inputs on this thing. It's a great controller, but the distance is limited.
Yeah, I remember liking the Waybird a lot when I first got mine. It was kind of my first foray into, well, other than the CDI, I suppose. First foray into real wireless controllers.
Oh, the 3DO is still on, ladies and
Yeah, I was
gentlemen.
gonna say, wait a minute. This is not Sakura
So I
Wars.
think this is going to be a 320 game. Looks like it.
So they're curious about how it will handle the low-res animation specifically. So don't skip
Or
the
is
cutscene.
it? I can't. Well, we'll find out. I can't remember. Where's my pad for Saturn? There it is.
Alex Gavin sends $5 and says, "What's your opinions on the GameCube disk drive? Mine is worryingly loud. I'm thinking of switching out for a GC loader. Any thoughts on that?"
I've never had issues with the GC disk
Never
drive,
had. Yeah, never had.
and
an
I have
issue
a
with it.
lot of GameCubes. Just people have given them to me over the years, for some reason. So I have multiple regions, and all the disk drives work fine.
I have 3. I have a purple, black, another black for some reason. One of them is NTSC.
I finally got one that had had an actual mod chip in it. So because I was tired of using bootloaders and stuff to launch multi-region games, because I have games from all regions, so being able to just pop them in and go is very, very convenient.
Yep. Yeah, it seems to be handling the animation just
As expected.
the limitations comes from the encoding there more so than anything that Tink can help with.
Exactly.
So
I can't really show scan lines here because the way I've scaled it within OBS is not completely even.
Yeah.
So it will not look great on there.
I've never seen scanlines really look good in
Video form.
video, unless you're like recording 4K or something.
It needs-
It just comes out terrible.
The output has to be precise, basically. If there's any sort of like uneven scaling, it just destroys the effect, just due to the nature of how it works. So, oh yeah.
Anna Inunon sends 35 ZARs. Question for Mike. I noticed the 5X that 240p 480i has some graphical artifacts when switching. Is that the results of not using a frame buffer?
Oh, he's using
On the 5X, it is the result of the frame buffer because when there's a switch, there's garbage being sent. So it just has to display whatever garbage is being fed to it.
Exactly. Like, I don't think that's just the nature of, you either get instant switching or you lose with a little bit of visual garbage, or you lose the image. So it's kind of the lesser of the two evils, I think.
That was like your Batman voice coming out for like 2 seconds there.
It got very deep, very Batman.
Triangle sends 100 rubles.
Thank you, Triangle.
Can you make? Yeah, sending so much. Can you make the 5x scale a small region of the image to make Doom on the 3DO truly full screen?
Yeah, that is possible. The FPGA can scale to whatever factor you want. Those are some of the advanced controls that might take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Eventually, and it's kind of exactly like the PSP problem. It's just you just need to add the custom ability to blow it up. But the scaler can, pretty much within reason, change, crop, or scale, zoom.
That's awesome. Yeah. Man, the video quality on this was actually pretty good for the Saturn.
Yeah. I mean, of course, if it had like MPEG card support or something, could it look better, but it's fine.
I love the drop shadow, though, on everything. I still use that in Premiere.
Yeah, a lot of comments on scan lights, and people are saying like in the mid-2000s the fake scan lights and emulators were really bad. And I do remember that at that time it was literally just kind of alternating gray bars and whatnot. Nothing too... The shaders nowadays, though, on RetroArch can get really good. So...
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
Royale shader and whatnot. Like I use a lot of RetroArch just in my free time when I set up my media center and stuff.
Actually, Mike,
So-
do you have any suggestions or thoughts on VGA input or like a DE15 style input? Like, if you can some kind of adapter or alternate version of the Tink 5X Pro that would handle that. Like, have you looked into that or thought about this issue?
Yeah, that's a good question. And first of all, the reason why there wasn't a VGA adapter on this is because the video chip really is suited for consumer video. It's not suited for HV RGB sync. So to add that in would add a lot of conversions.
Okay.
Whereas I think, again, I've always been a console guy, so maybe I'm sure I'm missing something. But by and by, most consoles, the only one that really used VGA was Dreamcast, and SCART cables are becoming pretty common and easy to get. So that's why I kind of went that route. But for the VGA inputs, I think a friend of mine, Tian Feng, is making a very nice VGA to SCART converter, which Bob just tested yesterday, and it worked quite well. So hopefully that's a good solution for people that do need the VGA input. But the long story short is, it didn't make sense because it would add a lot more complexity to the design to work around that chip.
Sure.
Whereas, for the use cases that really do need it, that overlap, there are adapters coming.
Very cool.
I get the sense that Bob has been very influential and helpful to you, because I see, I've seen the interviews you've done with Bob, and like just generally how highly Bob speaks of you. It seems like he's always been very helpful with the RetroTINK business.
Yes, Bob's been a huge friend and supporter, and I think it was you and I talked previously about how we came late into this
Mhm.
scene, and it's really people like Bob and the others have made it possible for us to come in. So it was so there's definitely a huge thanks to everyone that's come before us, and to be honest, Bob's video on the Raspberry Pi was how I got into the first place, right? I think he made a video about how to take that little VGA hat and try to shoehorn that into a PVM, and I watched it. I'm like, this is possible, and that's how I went from there. So I sent an email to Bob. I was like, hey, I'm building this hat. Do you want to look at it? And he said, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And we started talking.
Bob is so great with that stuff. He's so inviting and yeah, really helpful and friendly. For me, it was the same basically. I mean, I started getting back into this. I worked for magazines and stuff, and then kind of left the industry for a bit, and then got to know John and got back into it. But Bob, as soon as I started talking to him, he was just like, "Here's all the stuff I can help you with." Like, just he so selfless and helpful. So
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely. And I think
yeah.
just the knowledge that he brings to this community, a lot of it pro bono,
Mhm.
is just I think we all owe him a big debt.
Yep,
Yeah,
definitely. He's the
so helpful.
glue of this community.
Yep,
He really
that's a good
is.
way to
He
put it.
kind of, yeah, he's really the binding point. Everyone knows Bob, and everyone kind of has a good story about him.
Aha, so I put this one in for you, Audie.
All right,
What could it
let's see what
be?
it is. Ooh, okay. The Duck Corporation. Dead or Alive.
Ah, there we
Yeah, I
go.
really love the Saturn version of Dead or Alive. Uh, and this should look pretty good on the Tink.
Yeah, this was one of the 480i fighting games, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It is indeed.
Yeah, the nice
Obvious.
thing I think about 480i from this generation, Saturn and PS1, is a lot of them didn't have that silly anti-blur or flicker
Yeah.
blur filter.
Exactly. So that ended up looking pretty good. Let's do a little training so we can just see it in action. Yeah, the pause there isn't even the scaler. It's just the game itself.
Yep. Yeah, this has always been my favorite of the two original um, Dead or Alives. I like the PlayStation version just fine as well. I mean, it's really fun and fast.
Oh, the
But there's
training
been
map is
some.
just this.
Yep, it's just an infinite playing.
So we should actually go to. Oh, I see. Yeah. How do I actually? Let's do that. I love the Saturn's quick reset is one of my favorite things. Also on the Dreamcast, it's just the old hold the three buttons, press start,
Mm-hmm.
and you get back to the main menu. Press it again, and you go back to the system menu.
Gabriel sends five hey eyes from, guessing he's Brazilian.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Mike, thanks for helping me out to recognize R2X from a Brazilian seller. Loving it to play with my old CRT monitor and game capturing.
Thank you
So
very much.
Oh yeah, that's right. Getting these things down to Brazil is probably not the simplest
very
thing.
difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, Brazil has always been a tough one because I know they've got a huge import tariff they have to pay, and then
Yep,
It's like
exactly.
80%.
yeah,
It's
and then I
unbelievable.
think a Brazilian friend made a joke that when you buy something from overseas, you buy one for yourself and you buy one for the government.
Pretty much.
That's funny. Sad but true.
Chris Rat sends $10 and says, as a writer for RetroRGB.com, I have to suck up to Bob at every chance possible. So he's a great guy. In all seriousness, I love everything he does for the community. He's a great guy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Most definitely. And this is looking good here, guys. Dead or Alive 480i on this thing.
Yeah, this would not be able to be captured this well with other.
Also, okay, actually, I got to stop for a second because this is interesting. You can see it in the pause. the thing about the Saturn version, so you look at the UI up there, you look at the characters, they all look suitably high res, right? But then you look at the floor, and you notice as it moves away from the camera, it's pretty garbled. And it looks chunkier compared to everything else. And that's because the floor is generated using the VDP2's infinite plane system, essentially. It's basically just a tile map at the ground. But that always runs in a lower... You can't actually... On the Saturn itself, that actually just runs at a lower resolution. Right. So, and it's composited with what VDP1 is doing. So that it's just the combination of the two. So we get high-res polygons, but a low-res floor. And a lot of these high-res fighting games in Saturn were like this because they use VDP2 for the floor.
Yeah. You showcased kind of how all this works a lot with the Panzer Dragoon Survive video.
That's right.
Yeah, so you can go...
I love that about the Saturn. I think it's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's crazy, though, to put 2 video display processors in one console and 2 CPUs back in 1994.
Yeah. I don't envy the developers. That must have been a pain in the rear.
The thing about it is, like, apparently, like, especially in the US, a lot of the early tools for debugging the game required you to slot in the debugger into the CPU slot on the dev kit. So you would actually have to remove, like, the SH2, which had a very nice complicated pin out that you could bend the pins easily. To remove the chip, you slot this debug thing into the CPU socket, and then you can use the debugger. And then when you want to switch back to normal mode, you got to swap it again. And you can only do it at one CPU at a time. And a lot of developers only had the option to debug one CPU at a time. So a lot of those early games didn't take advantage of both SH2s because they couldn't debug them simultaneously.
Yeah, it's just too complicated. Yeah.
So it's just, oh man, Sega was nuts back then. I think in Japan they had better access to it. And I'm sure the documentation situation was really bad in the US too, or just in the West in general.
One console we haven't talked about yet, when we talk about all these frustrating debugging situation and whatnot, the Atari Jaguar.
Oh man, the Jag is it's a special thing, isn't it?
Did you try the Jaguar on the Tink 5X, Mike?
I have not. I think a few of my friends I sent it out did, but I actually don't even own one.
Well,
not surprising.
We could find out right now. I could turn on the Jag if you want.
Are you going to be playing Tempest, the one game
No.
I do not care about?
Actually, I can't play the Jag from here because the controller cord's not long enough to get to my Jag. But I could start up like Rayman and let it run through the sequence if you guys wanted. Or you can. Okay.
Let's do some Jaguar.
Let's do that then.
Since Mike hasn't played it himself, let's get some proof for him. See if I missed any. 100 Swedish kroners from Nolasco. Hi homies, was hoping for a live stream this evening. PS2 on a Panasonic Plasma with component cables or RGB on a Bang Olufsen CRT. Thank you, homies. Love DF Retro, and as always, stay safe. Yeah, so
Thank you.
I would say an RGB on Bang Olufsen CRT personally, but I know John, you like the plasmas, don't you?
I do, but I would also go with the CRT in this case.
All right, so we're both going with the B&O.
Yep, exactly.
I do love the B&O sets though.
So
I wish we had access to that because I think they're supposed to be, as well regarded as the Trinitron here, but they've got the slot mask, which
exactly
looks more like an arcade, much more like an arcade. Which I think, to be honest, the Trinitrons to me always looked a little bit sharp, or just didn't have enough texture.
I love the Trinitron look myself, but I get what you mean. You're right. The slot mask has its own look, and it is very arcade-like. And the B&O TVs are great for that because they use really high-end CRTs from that era, and they look really, really good. They also have a really nice anti-glare cover, I guess. Most of them do. So you get this really rich black level to it. Because if the professional monitors, they intentionally don't have any sort of anti-glare.
Right.
They have an anti-glare coating, but they don't have anything to enhance the contrast, basically. So when you shine light on one of those tubes, it sort of washes out. So you got to play it in a dark room, which is what video professionals wanted. I guess. But anyway, this is
Look at this. Jaguar.
This is the
running on
Atari Jaguar running on the Tink. I'm using the 320 pixel sample mode for that the Saturn uses, and it seems to be, I think it's a match here. Wait, no, that 3 looks a little off. Maybe, let's see what we got here. I really can't say what it would be right off the top of my head. It's not. It looks pretty good at this though.
Yeah. I mean, looks.
Let's try N64.
This is one of the best games on the Jaguar platform as well.
Yeah. I can't really look at it per pixel up close because of the scaling in OBS, but it looks pretty sharp like this.
Yep.
And it plays nicely with this. So we can enjoy some Atari Jaguar action on here.
It really looks amazing, though, this game. I mean, just considering... The PlayStation version looks and sounds better, yes.
So
but,
Saturn, yeah.
Yeah, but...
For the Jag, this looks great. The only problem with this version is that the sound is not good. The soundtrack is... The Jaguar games generally sound kind of terrible.
Yes, there's very few games with a good Jaguar soundtrack.
But still, this is a great looking game.
Is this RGB or S-Video, someone's asking?
This is RGB. So, this is a non-modded system, of course. It's just a regular old Atari Jaguar. And I was fortunate enough to have 2 Jaguars, so... but now Audi has one of them, so...
Yes, I
because
have one here.
I have to spread the love of the Jag.
Then I have a pretty sizable Jaguar collection.
You have
and
a big
also
Jag collection now, don't you?
boxed, yeah. And of course, we're planning on doing things with Jaguar, so
Eventually, yeah.
eventually. As someone's asking also, it's not a super chat, but just because I actually enjoy it, have you tried Rayman Redemption? So
I
Rayman
have.
Redemption is that PC fan game that is based on this original, and it's quite good. Yes, I played it. I really enjoyed it, and kind of wish it's kind of like the Sonic Mania of Rayman, I suppose you could say. And I wish there was sort of way to get that officially licensed and onto consoles, but Timus for life sends $5 and says looks great. Any way to use RCA audio for SCART consoles on the 5X? If not, could that be added to firmware?
What do you think, Mike?
That unfortunately not. The audio is routed through the same multiplexing system as the RCA. So with SCART, it has to take the audio from the SCART pins. I think you could buy. I don't know if it's an input or output. I've seen SCART where it's got RCA jacks on the top for you to insert something, but I can't remember if that was for the input or output direction.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What else should I put in, gentlemen, while we're still testing this out? Any thoughts?
Man.
Anything that could push it? Just an interesting game to see on here.
You mean on the Jaguar or any console?
On anything. Yeah, exactly. If I say the Jaguar, then we'll have to think for a while because there's not.
Yeah, then it's gotta.
Then it gets tricky.
Pushes it for a bit.
Let me look over here. Oh,
You found something?
I know what we could do.
All right.
You guys ready to go to the movie? So,
Sure.
have you guys seen Marked for Death, Halloween 4, and Rapid Fire? From director Dwight H. Little.
No.
Also, you're not a fan, okay. Well, we're gonna, I guess I say it in quotes, we're gonna play one of his games. It's Ground Zero, Texas.
Oh, I see.
So, let's get ready for it.
It's an FMV game
It is.
on the Sega CD. Yeah, okay, that's a good test, I suppose. The grainy FMVs.
Let me get the sampling rate correct here. And for those, this is a good, again, we've been adjusting this H sampling value here. This is a great feature of the Tink because you don't actually have to, you can just kind of cycle between these different options that Mike set up. And it's really nicely designed for most systems that you wouldn't want to use, giving you perfectly sharp, crystal clear pixels without having to dial it in manually as you do on the OSSC, which can be convenient sometimes, but also not great when you just want to play. So yeah, let's start this up and enjoy.
There is a question from Mike here. What games have you been playing recently? I guess just in your spare time.
Oh, man, that is a good question. To be honest, I haven't played any games really for the past 2 years or so. It's mostly for testing, and I'm just like cycling through as many as I can. I wish I could sit down and play some games. Honestly, I'm getting a lot of ideas from this stream right here, seeing things I've never seen before.
Like this. Actually, this is something I'm unsure about. Is if I wonder if they're using. I think they might be using a 256 pixel wide mode for this. Maybe, which kind of, I never thought about this, but for FMV games that would kind of make sense. Because then you kind of get the impression. Yeah, I think that's what it was. That's a 256 pixel wide game. Probably helps them get a larger image on the CRT.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get this lovely grainy Sega CD video here.
Got a super chat from Seven Kurgand, $3.77. Put Xenosaga for PS2. So I guess he wants to see Xenosaga.
Oh, well, I'm sure we can do that. After we finish watching this amazing game.
Question for Mike, if possible. Any plans of adding optional timings for the high-res PS1 modes like 512, X240, and 640 by 240, or the 512 by 448 PS2 interlace modes?
Eventually, I think some of the unfortunately, I think for the high res modes, they would have to be you wouldn't have access to all of them at all the resolutions, just because of sample rate limitations. So I'd have to see what is possible.
Fair enough. Have you looked at what? I just had an idea looking at this real quick. Based on that, what I was doing with the FrameMeister in the past. Have you considered like an option for essentially filtering the video in such a way to simulate composite blur to kind of like, improve like dithering like this? Because, obviously you can use composite video and that's fine.
Yeah.
But you still have additional artifacts on top of that
Right.
that are maybe not desirable. And also, for some games you might want to use that feature, right? But for most, maybe you wouldn't, and it would be kind of interesting. Like if you're playing an FMV game, you could say, okay, I want to blur this out somewhat so that I can reduce the visible pixelation and dithering inherent in this. Have you looked at such a mode?
Yeah, I've definitely looked at that, and I think some sort of blurring filter wouldn't be too hard to add. Also looking into a reverse slow pass filter for the the 2-chip SNES. So those are things kind of floating around in the back of my mind.
Cool.
I saw someone also asking if you've tried this with a Atari 2400.
20.
I have not. Some people have.
2600 now.
Yeah.
Yes, 2600.
It's just the chance 100.
Some people have. I think it in triple buff. The problem with Atari, as my friend Voltar explained to me, is that it really the Atari the game is responsible for generating vertical sync. And that causes a lot of problems in in digital decoders. So you end up with the image jumping up and down. The Atari 2600 does generally work, as in the image will not drop in triple buffer mode, but some games that are particularly, let's say, loose with the timing, I think, jump up and down. And I think Voltar was telling me people were modding the games actually to try to make that more regular.
Yeah.
I guess it's just the nature of that era. When there's such
everything was a hack.
Yeah, it was all a hack. Yeah.
Odyssey. Chris Pratt since $5. Fun fact: the alien stormtroopers in this game are wearing costumes from the movie Tron. It's more noticeable in the remaster that recently came out.
Huh. I didn't know that, actually. Wait, really? This game?
Mhm.
Huh. Okay.
So
Okay, I gotta switch. See, if you don't switch immediately, you just get berated by one of the characters, and then you get a game over.
FMV games, it's just they like yelling at you. It's like the era of low self-esteem because every game just tells you you're crap and you can't do anything right.
So, I don't know if the audience can hear what he's saying. I cannot. But basically, you click around on a map, you watch cutscenes, and then you move this cursor around to shoot at some people that are apparently, whatever they are. Like, this is a weird game, and I use the term game lightly. Oh, here we go. Here's a shooting section.
It's a game.
It is. It is.
So
Look at that. You get a unique.
Oh, I see. So if you actually make the shot, it jumps to the cutscene
Sometimes
of the person getting shot
Yep,
Pretty
there
much.
it goes.
in a completely different environment.
yes,
Of course.
guys. So Mike, I know that our friend MVG recently did a video on the Tink, and
Oh, yeah.
he talked about the Amiga, and of course I grew up with the Amiga as well, being European. And I think you said that you were going to look into the Amiga now.
Yeah, I think MVG was kind enough to send me a unit. So as soon as I get it from him, I'll take a look at that. As with anything, there's just a built-in list of edge cases. I think on the NTSC side, I finally fixed the Neo Geo,
Yeah.
the AES. I'm not sure if there's going to be a fix for the SMS. That console's really weird. That's been a waste. Well, I wouldn't say waste, but that's consumed a lot of my time. But yeah, as with anything, everything, it just takes time to get a list of known edge cases and then try to figure out patches whenever possible to work around them.
Have
And
you?
when you said SMS, you mean Master System, Sega
Master System, yeah.
Does the
I mean-
the Neo Geo issue also apply to the Neo Geo CD? Because I have one of those units here and I haven't tried it yet.
So far, the Neo Geo CD has not had any problems. MVS 1C based consoleized Neo Geos have worked fine, which is why I never picked up on it in the first place, because that was kind of my go-to testing setup. It was really the AES and I think the MVS 1F series that had sync problems.
Ah, got it.
The Mark Shark
Yeah, you
sends
just-
a dollar.
yeah.
No comp. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah. Once again, you just gotta love these guys, these console makers, for putting out random hacks on random revisions. It'll just drive you crazy.
I guess they didn't foresee that one day we would be doing things like this to the consoles, but $5 from the Evil Gibson. That checkboard wall that one soldier was standing in front of just now had white blocks generated from it. Codec flaw or dithering flaw?
I mean, I'd have to look at it again to remember, but it's probably a combination of the two, because you can definitely see flaws in the encoding, but you also see lots of dithering. I can't. That they were trying to focus on FMV back then, and it was almost exclusively just in the West. If you look at all the Mega CD games available in Japan and then the PC Engine CD, like FMV is very, very rare. But it was all over in the
I mean,
US.
Japan had its place, but it was very concentrated towards demographics and specific like educational tools and whatnot, like the Plagia, and then of course the PCFX. But
There was a few games on these, like a Road Blaster. Is it Road Blaster? Or I always get that confused with the Tengen game.
you mean
one of them.
Road Blaster FX?
Road Avenger or Road
Blaster, yeah.
Yeah, Road Avenger. So there's
That was a
some
later disc game, which was the genesis
Exactly.
of all these FMV stuff. Was basically the Laserdisc
So-
Interactive.
Somebody asked for Xenosaga, didn't they?
Someone did ask for Sanozaga, because that runs in that interesting resolution.
It does. Okay.
Lauren Holst, have you €5? Mike, have you tried the MSX? The MSX2 has 256 and 512 horizontal pixel modes and support interlace. So MSX and MSX2, have you tried them, Mike?
Those two I haven't tried yet, unfortunately. I imagine they should work. Well, fingers crossed. I don't see why they wouldn't.
I have a MSX2. I'll let you know.
Yeah, that that was a Japanese computer, right?
Yes, it was a Microsoft attempt of standardizing the computer in Japan.
That was it,
So,
Mike, as I recall. So I think that should be okay. Was that a composite only device or is that RGB?
it depends on what unit.
Okay, I see.
There's so many of them. But
Yeah, the only reference to the MSX that I personally know of was that there's that Castlevania or version of Castlevania
yeah.
that was more of a puzzle type than the
It's more like an
NES one.
adventure. It's kind of like an early
Yeah.
Simon's Quest type thing.
Right.
So yeah, but MSX2, I'll test it out for you. I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, it should work. I can't see any reason not. So Xenosaga,
Yep.
how's the
Can let the FMB
Good.
play a little bit.
Yeah.
This game has a phenomenal soundtrack.
yes.
This is when they let Mitsuda just like go nuts with live orchestra. So there's a ton of live instruments in here.
Live concert recently based on Xenosaga that they released on Blu-ray.
Oh wow, do you have it?
I have it.
Oh man, I gotta see that
It's very
next
good.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was I was very hyped for this game, and it's what would follow at the time.
The PAL release came with like this pretty nice cardboard box and everything. I have it. So I remember this release being huge, yeah.
Actually, so wait, from what the PAL release, thinking of that, our friend of the show, Thomas Nickel, I think recently shared, at least in Germany, that only Xenosaga Episode 2 was released.
Oh yeah, that might be true actually. You might be right about that.
So like, that's
Yeah.
that's kind of insane, right? Like it's why would you only release part 2 in a series like that? Because it doesn't, especially part 2 is the weakest of the 3, and also it's like you're like without so much context. I don't know, it's a strange one. I don't get it.
I saw Time is for Life asked, does the 5X handle Dreamcast 720x 480p DTV signal properly? Can optimized mode be added?
Yeah, it does handle. It can sample it without any of the sampling errors. Although I think I do need to add an aspect ratio correction eventually. It would be possible to do an optimized mode. It would be possible to do an optimized mode but it would only be in the 1440p output due to sample rate limitations.
Right.
And I think we're gonna have to wait for the HD RetroVision cables to come out because I think.
Oh, so like
that is the
2025, 2026 maybe? No.
I think those are it's the only way to get a pure enough signal into the 5X because the video chip internally runs on YPBPR, and I think while the SCART port is very, very good, it does have just a tiny bit of smudge at 480p. Not enough that you would notice it in generic mode and play, but if you wanted to do an optimized mode, I'm hopeful that the HD RetroVisions will do it.
Cool.
Yeah, so people were mentioning about this game. So yeah, the release I have, it comes with a DVD of Episode 1 story. That's right. That's why it comes.
Is that Episode 2 then?
Yeah.
Oh, so they actually just that's right.
In the movie thing.
In the US, the Xenosaga movie thing was actually a pre-order bonus. I do have a copy of that. And I guess it was for 2, they were still like, well, in case people didn't play 1, we'll get them. But then Xenosaga 3 just kind of quietly came out, I think, after the PS3 was out, if I recall. So I remember buying that in like 2006. Xenosaga 3 is really, really good, actually. They fixed like all the problems that this first game and even the second had. Like in this first one, like entering a battle is slow, the battles are slow, like everything about it is very laborious. But in part 3, it's like trigger a battle and it's like this instant transition. Everything's super fast paced. It feels great.
Evil Gibson sends $2 and asks, "Do you have Final Fantasy VI PS1 version? Would like to see the intro movie."
Oh man, no, I'm sorry, I don't have that. That was one of those things where I kind of avoided it just due to the technical issues versus the real original hardware. So
The intro movie was nice, but oh man, I got that when it came out, and I was like, geez, I can't play this. The loading times were insane.
The weird thing though about Chrono Trigger was actually kind of okay in its Japanese release on PlayStation. Like I need to go back and look at this, but from what I recall, the issue is that the way the text was encoded in Japanese, it was just small enough that they could kind of like fit it in memory or something in a way that didn't cause super long loading issues. Whereas when they did the English translation, I guess maybe due to the increase in the amount of text per line or something, or I can't recall the details there, but essentially they had to make changes to the game to make the English localization work within it, and it caused the loading times to increase as a result. So it plays worse in the North American version, which is a shame.
Lauren Holst sends €5 and says, "Does the RetroTINK 5X support 512 240p and 512 480i optimal sampling modes?"
I have that working in the next firmware release for the SNES, the 512 mode. It's actually the same as the 256. It only works in some output resolutions because of the way that the sample rates have to line up and the scaling. I haven't implemented optimal timings for any of the interlace modes, and I think that's large because I think the benefit you get in the interlaced modes is a lot less, just because you get artifacts from interlacing and de-interlacing already. So that's been kind of lower on the priority list.
Man, the next I already have the next game selected that I'm going to put in, but first I'm gonna skip ahead so we can see what the real-time graphics look like here within the gameplay. And then I'll switch to that. By the way, Xenosaga Episode 1 here shipped on a DVD-9, which was unique for the time. Oh, and that's not the RetroTINK messing up. That's the game. They're intentionally doing that video effect. They send you like in some sort of... Oh, yeah. The virtual tutorial. So this at least gives us an idea what the 3D graphics look like. I don't think I have any saves handy right now, but I gotta put in this next one because it's just...
So far, it's been handling everything you threw at it. No issues.
Yes. We're still streaming. You want to say hi to the audience again? Of course. If you can prop yourself up there. Can you see? Here you go. Hey, there he is. Say hello.
Hello. Hi.
How's it going, man?
Hi, how's it going?
Cookies.
You can't hear anything really, can you?
Cookies.
Were you eating cookies?
Yes, I was.
Well, here we go. I put in a very special disc.
Boy, I'm playing a really hard time.
Oh, I see. Immediately.
It's a Meteor Romancer Daisuke Asakura.
It's a showcase disc. It's not a game.
You say that, but...
Yeah, well, in this case, it really isn't.
That's true.
7 Kurgand sent $7.77. So John, the RT5X hands down works the best on PS2 using motion adapted de-interlacing. Also, Mike, looking forward to the RetroTINK 5X Direct for PS2.
Oh, thank you very much.
So, for my personal opinion on that is, the motion adaptive de-interlacer is the best choice for PS2, but there's also that CRT simulate mode that you've included, which looks like a Bob de-interlace with sort of a scan line alternation thing going on. I like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I think some people really like it, and some people really hate it. But it's basically scan lines for 480i. It draws, it blinks out unused fields, unused lines in a given field, so it tries to copy a CRT. It kind of looks like a very high resolution BVM, high TV line BVM.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit. It's probably a bit aggressive for most people.
It does remind me of those like 1000 TV line
Yeah.
high-end BVMs, which 800 is kind of my preferred line count, I feel. I like 800. 600 is pretty good too, but 900 and up, it's just a little bit too much for games. Although there is a trick, if you kind of defocus the screen slightly, it looks pretty good.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, at 1000 TV lines, it's basically a computer CRT, and one of those high-end ones that you would get professionals would get to do computer editing back in the day.
So
quite a different look.
So guys, this game here, this was actually released in a slip case and everything. You got the disc come out there. This was a premium product, all right? Just saying.
Yeah.
And you can talk, like we could do anything here. Like, let's ask him about his art, or no, the movies that he likes. Let's see what he says. Oh, and then they have this little tiny video while they interview him. Does it play? There he is. I can't.
Is this actually a game or just a bunch of movies?
Oh, it's just this.
There's some game, pseudo game stuff on here.
Very pseudo, but yeah, it's basically just this fan compendium thing for this keyboard artist.
For the Sega Saturn, you could buy this on disc. This is the age of the CD-ROM, ladies and gentlemen. This is when you would buy discs just to have like stuff to play.
I mean, to be fair, on PC you could get stuff like this for.
Oh yeah.
I was about to say this looks a lot like something you'd find in Windows 3.1.
Right.
It does.
So
you
can tell a few of these on PlayStation as well.
The thing I love though is you have his picture there on the left, and then you have his interview on the right, and his hair color is different because I suspect
it looks like a different person.
He's probably one of those artists that was like dyeing his hair different colors like every few weeks or something, and just you just never knew. Different hairstyle, just that was the thing.
Some of his music is pretty good though.
Yeah. Not to knock it. It's the disc is silly. The disc is silly, but he has some cool music.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre to me that this type of product was produced back then. For a console, more specifically. Like, I can see this as a PC CD-ROM thing, but on a console, it's a little bit strange.
Yeah, no, in Japan, that wasn't too uncommon. I mean, even for movies, like, Spawn, the comic book, that had a live-action film, and in Japan only, they released a preview disc for the PlayStation, for specifically the movie, where it's just, like, interviews with the cast and, like, behind-the-scenes pictures and whatnot. So...
Oh, yeah, let's start this.
Interesting stuff like this. Oh, you found an actual game?
Yes. Oh, no.
Oh, no. 1990s, gentlemen. No.
Yes. Oh, no. Oh, this is really weird.
Okay.
Oh, love that loading screen. Oh, this looks like a Jurassic Park Interactive, actually.
I was gonna say, this is just Jurassic Park Interactive on the 3DO.
This is like, wow. This is a thing? I forgot about this. What the heck?
Yeah, this really had a Windows 3.1 shovelware vibe.
It's just, yeah. The fact that they even bothered to include this, still, why? Like,
I mean, Jurassic. I'm not supposed to hit her, but I don't care. I don't know if I actually. This is pretty much just Jurassic Park Interactive on the 3DO.
just lacks the charm. I see HRTR saying, "Hi, Mike, John and Audi. Thank you, Mike, for my 5X. Comes on Monday."
Thank you very much.
You can play this game on there.
You can definitely play.
Oh, no, we're going to stop that.
Yeah, don't go further.
Let's see, what else could... Should pop in another thing here.
This is a good question for Mike. Jim Dewey. Hi, Mike. I'm an EE, but I work on hardware that is way different from the RetroTINK. Are there any sources you use to learn and improve your hardware designs that you could recommend?
Oh, and the big, the challenge really is just finding, there as with many things, there's just no central repository of information, and that's one of the uphill challenges. I mean, the way I learned is just, you just kind of have to learn by making a lot of mistakes, right? And when you find a problem, you just type into Google, and the best resources are the results that pop up that link to a manufacturer's application note. Most of the hardware vendors that make chips are very good at putting out resources that tell you how to do things, and just read as many of those as you can.
Now, do you talk to the other folks in the same industry as you, like the OSSC folks and whatnot? Do you discuss hardware with them, or is it?
Absolutely. Good friend. One of my good friends is Woozle64, the fellow behind the GBA consoleizer and a lot of the mods now. And I owe him a big thanks because he's the one that kind of put me through FPGA boot camp. Last year I knew nothing. I knew how to do the digital video. I knew how to do the analog video processing and all the other stuff that was in the original Tinks. But like, how do I get started in FPGA? And he kind of kicked me in the right direction, and then I was able to get ramped up in learning how to do HDL design. So definitely having a buddy out there helps you a lot, and I owe him a big thanks.
So what did you engineer in before thinking and stuff? Like, what was your day job basically?
My day job is building brain imaging devices. It's not as exciting as it sounds. It's just EEG, which is a very simple form of brain imaging, but low frequency but high resolution amplifiers.
Yep.
That's what I spent the past 10-15 years doing.
There's a question here from PS1Freak26. Any thoughts on making a RetroTINK 5X for PC users that can go up to 120 Hz for 90s and early 2000 PCs to work on 1440p high refresh monitors with VGA?
Actually, to be honest, the best choice for VGA today is probably still the OSSC. It's built around a high-resolution VGA video digitizer. So in the areas where it struggles with consoles and bad sync like the SNES, it actually excels with computer sources. As far as me personally, I've always been a console guy, so I kind of tend to gravitate towards what I know, and I think while that's something I'd like to look into, it's the use requirements for doing computer sources really, really well is different enough than for consumer video that it would have to be a very different thing if done correctly.
Yeah.
PC stuff, thinking of PC stuff in general is really weird, especially like just DOS games. So many DOS games use mode X, which is a 70 hertz 320 by 200 mode. And unless you have a higher refresh rate screen, usually with VRR that can actually take 70 hertz, it's not going to look good in capture anyway, or for play. So that is tricky. That's why you have to have a big old CRT on your desk like I do. It's the only way.
The nice thing about computer sources is that I think computer CRTs are still pretty easy to find.
Oh yeah, they are.
And
they are.
I think, and the sizes aren't obnoxious. They're not like 30-inch TVs, so they're still semi-manageable right now.
Exactly, yeah. And actually the CRTs are really good for like line doublers in general, where it's like you'd have to convert it to VGA, but like the RetroTINK 2X, for instance, just feeding that out to a computer monitor looks really good. It's a perfect fit for it, actually.
And if you turn on the scan lines, it gets pretty close to what a PVM might look like.
Okay. Exactly. So it's really cool. They're good monitors to have. This is a great game, by the way.
Yeah, KO Flying Squadron 2.
Yeah.
While I have Land of Obscursion says, while I haven't bought the 5X, I did buy the 2X Classic a few months ago, and it allowed me to capture some old and rare anime laser discs. Thanks so much for the device, Mike.
Well, thank you very much. Glad that's working out well. I think
Cool that you can use it for stuff like that too, right? So
yeah, I always like it when people are using it for stuff that I never thought that would be possible or people would be interested in. That's always great.
yeah, it was the first when John told me about this product a long way back now. I was like, could we use this to like digitize laserdiscs and VHS? And he's like, yep. It's like, all right, I'm
Exactly.
getting one.
You have
So
some awesome laser discs too, so we need
I
to.
do. I collect a lot of video game music concerts and whatnot, which are very hard to get and never been digitized. So it definitely is a godsend. Momo asks Mike, are you talking about alpha waves, like 4 hertz to 12 hertz for EEG?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Just EEG rhythms. Alpha wave is one of the easiest ones to detect.
Cool.
Lauren Holst, €2, talking about VRR. How about VRR and HDR support?
That is a good question. I think, well, the first VRR is probably not needed for retro content because, unlike computers, you're not trying to render things, with variable rates depending on how complex the scene is. Their
Yeah.
consoles are pretty good at outputting a standard 60 or give or take a constant rate, right?
Yeah. I think it's more that some consoles are slightly off spec. So even in the current mode, like with triple buffering, it looks very, very good and so close that it's almost perfect. But you do get a duplicate frame every so often because in that mode. But you can also use the more accurate mode. But I guess the issue, and I don't know if it's really designed for this kind of thing, but like arcade boards, for instance, a lot of arcade games use a weird specifications. Like Mortal Kombat's a great example of that. It's like 54 something hertz.
Yes.
Which does not play nice with upscaling, but it's
so weird.
Yeah.
Although playing on MAME on a VRR monitor, it really does look perfect. But that's like the only way.
I think that's the one use case that would help is if VRR was more the monitors were tolerant to different refresh rates. But
And they are. They are.
The difference is that for our use case, the refresh rate might be off spec, but it's always constant.
Right.
So
that's
you
true.
can also find a non VRR monitor. Those exist that have a wider range of tolerances. Yeah. So I think that side is handled reasonably well right now without necessarily implementing VRR proper on the scaler itself. The HDR stuff I definitely like to look into, but it is not within the spec of the HDMI chips you can easily get for projects like this. So it would have to be a hack, which I'm not sure if it's impossible, but I'm not sure if it's possible.
Well,
Holy Planeta says, Mike, I love all you do for the retro scene. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, you and everyone else makes it possible. So
do we.
Big thanks to everyone as well.
We're part of the retro cartel, as they say.
The retro cartel shilling upscalers and
Exactly.
But
So
the
we can
funny thing about
profit
that
off
comment,
all these
I don't
people.
want to get into trolling too much, but it's like the retro RGB cartel shilling HD Retrovision component cables, and just the contradiction in that statement just kind of blows my mind away.
Oh, I know. Oh, I forgot to open the umbrella. There it is.
Yeah, like most things in the retro community, you have to do this out of love and kind of fun, because
Exactly.
you're never gonna buy a house, based on these things.
Yeah,
Precisely.
for sure. I find that it's definitely a lot more fun than quote unquote the real job, and I think that's why it's worth doing.
Yeah.
Oh, input lag. I'm getting input lag from the capture going through the OS or the OBS, not the Tink itself.
King Crouch. I wonder if it's possible to do something similar to the NES Classic filter that reduces severity of strobe effects. I feel like those have made it so I can't get myself to play retro games anymore.
Strobe effects, really?
Do you know what the effects that?
I know what he's talking about.
He's talking about like hacking the games itself, right?
Yeah, and a lot of classic games, if you play them, you'll note that they will sometimes just flash the screen white, multiple times to get an effect, right? And the thing is, though, is a lot of times with those effects, like the strobing stuff, it's not bad if you play it on a small CRT, but I think that stuff was never designed to be played on like a large, modern flat panel.
Yeah.
So I could see how that could be a problem for sure, because it amplifies the effect a lot.
But that's not filtered though? I think that's actually a hack or like a modification of the game itself to not flash. So,
that might be right. I actually don't know how that works either, but
I'm
basically
sure
Nintendo, when they put out some of those things on like their virtual console services of the past, and I guess I don't know if the Switch does it as well, but anything that would flash, they would kind of like muffle, so it just kind of turns white briefly, and then they're basically getting rid of the flicker.
I know that for some of their like releases like this, it would be translation or modification. They use a Lua script to modify the game on the fly to not like either to display something different or not, flicker like that. And so that might be it too. So the ROM might be the same, but there might be a script on top that changes it. So I don't know. That's not something like the Tink itself, I think.
Yeah, because a lot
it
would
have to be a
like
ROM
per
hack.
game.
Exactly. A lot of those like emulators released on consoles, they're doing a lot of stuff where they're like intercepting the game and making modifications to like memory in real time. But it's actually something that modifies the game. I don't think you can do it externally.
Lauren Holtz asks, is the RetroTINK work getting to the point where it can replace your real job?
That is a good question. Probably, I would say yes. Although, I don't know what the sustainability of it is. Because these consoles are disappearing. So at some point, and things like the Mister and emulators and Raspberry Pis are getting better. So it's a finite lifespan. It would be my assessment.
And there's definitely an audience for this stuff, but I think that audience has a limit in general, and not everybody is interested in playing on the original hardware or cares about that.
It won't be possible. I mean,
eventually it won't be possible, or it'll be very difficult.
Yeah.
I kind of see this kind of retro gaming getting closer into the old, like maintaining old classic muscle cars, where you got to put in the work if you actually want to maintain it. Not everybody's going to want to do that, because I mean, emulators are pretty darn easy. Although, I mean, if you set it up right, like in my case, playing on the actual consoles on a CRT is a lot easier than actually like getting an emulator going.
Right. With time and patience, you set up that though. And
exactly. There is a setup time to that.
Yes, and the financial.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's true.
To it. So.
But I would say definitely, people, commercial operations, by companies like Nintendo themselves, they're just going to push forward on better turnkey solutions.
Yep.
And I think in 20 years, that's essentially what 99% of this is going to be.
Exactly.
The restart point is asking if the RetroTINK 5X attempts to detect exactly which console you're using and automatically choose the best settings.
I think that would be the dream, but that's pretty tough. I'll give you one easy example. For example, in the PlayStation 1, as far as I can tell, just by observing external characteristics, 320 and 256 are the same. So there's no way for someone just looking at the video signals without tapping into the console itself with a mod would be able to disambiguate the two.
Yeah, that's the issue. You only have what's being output via the analog output there, so there's not... Yeah. What a game.
Yeah, KO is fun.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this.
Let's go through the questions here. Someone's asking you, John, and it's Super Papa John. So, do you have Mohawk and headphone jack on the SNES? That game has a lot of Mode 7. I'd be interested to see how it looks. So what it has, though, is that rotation. It's crazy and not very good game, but yeah. I don't know if you ever played
I don't have
Mohawk and Headphone Jack.
it. I wish I had it though.
Now you do. I mean, you have a flash card, I suppose, but I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
if it's on your flash card. Because
Probably
you're
not.
using my curated setup.
Which is a pretty good setup, I must say. You have a good list on there.
Yeah.
I just haven't bothered to just add the thing is though, especially with I mainly only use flashcards just for if I need something for a video production.
Yeah, capture.
And I don't like to just have like the entire collection on them necessarily.
No.
'Cause I don't think that's fun. But that's just a thing for myself. It's the old ROM list problem.
Yeah, I never do that. I do have an SD card for my FX pack.
Oh, yeah.
Just for capture purposes, but it's never plugged in. You know, it's just
You
like...
use the official nomenclature now. I forgot about that. It's called the FX pack, isn't it?
Yes.
I
Because
guess
what was there? Like SD is
Yeah,
like
I think
SD?
SD cracked down on that,
Yep.
didn't they? Isn't it the same with HDMI now, where like you can't call something the HDMI, whatever? Anymore?
I can confirm that we're an official HDMI adopter. We pay the license fees,
Okay.
but that's about as far as I'll comment on that. there's
there you go.
officially, there's a reason why it's called a digital video port.
Aha.
Interesting.
There
Yeah.
you go.
I do have the SD to SNES card as well, like the old one.
Yep, that's right.
That was what it was originally called, yes.
Oh, I love that pixel art depth of field right there.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
It's
Beautiful.
an interesting game. So, should we do one more game, maybe, John?
Yeah, let's do one more game and then we'll close up for tonight. What should
right.
we pop in? Oh, for
Mike,
those
do you
asking
have
what this
any...
for those asking what this game is, it's Keiō Yugekitai Katsugeki Hen, which is Keiō's Flying Squadron 2 for the Sega Saturn. It was released in Japan and Europe, but not North America, sadly.
Right.
But anyway, let's figure this out. What are we doing last?
Yeah, so Mike, do you have, like, since it's the last game, do you have, like, one game you want us to plop in? Is there one favorite of yours
That I
or
might
something?
have.
Oh, not at all, dude. You guys, it's all up to y'all.
All
Okay.
right.
Why don't we? Well, do we have anything else? PAL 288 or 576i? I think that's most y'all's crowd.
That could be good. Just a second. Let me grab something.
I'll do some super chats while you look. Triangle sends another 100 rubles. If the signal is spiky, things are nearest neighbor sampled and it's PS1. If it's mainly low frequency and nicely filtered, it's the 64. I see. So, I guess he's talking about detecting the video signals from the different consoles.
That's
EV
true.
Rooney sends $5. Hey guys, any plans of making things open source? Let's see some 4AD PS2 fighters, De-interlaced Tekken Tag 1 or Street Fighter EX3, please. Okay, so the first part of the question is yours.
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, first of all, I have an immense respect for the open source projects, but I think specifically for custom hardware, there's some issues, which it's a longer, obviously much more complicated discussion. But let's just suffice to say that there's been ongoing issues in this space with, for lack of a better term, parasites.
Yep.
Being off work, and just because of the economics of hardware, it makes it more vulnerable than a software project, and not something I'm keen on doing, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally
And
understand.
I think you see that even with the open source scan converter, the way they've approached their next generation product has been, much more locked down than before. And unfortunately, the fact is, there are people that will just prey on the work of others, and that's not good.
For the second part of that question was 480i PS2 fighters, the interlace. We actually played Tekken Tag earlier, so you have to go on video on demand and check that out. But it looked amazing as expected.
So for our final game, I've selected something rather curious.
Is it Pepsi Man?
No, it's Mickey's Wild Adventure for the PlayStation. This was the beautiful PlayStation conversion of Mickey Mania. That only got a PAL release. So this is going to be 50 hertz.
This is a great game. There was actually a fan patch recently which makes this NTSC. natively.
That's right.
NTSC.
Yep.
So you can now enjoy it with like the X Station in 60 hertz.
It
Same
will, of
with,
course.
Earthworm Jim 2.
And yes, there's going to be judder again because we're
Mm-hmm.
doing a 50 to 60 hertz conversion through the stream. But yes, oh yeah, Earthworm Jim 2, that did get a Saturn 60 hertz release in multiple regions, but the PlayStation was Europe only.
Yeah, so that's why that patch exists.
So this game actually runs at the intended rate that the developers wanted.
I guess that's weird. It's slower than the 60 hertz versions on other consoles, but I don't know. I really don't know what the gameplay speed is. It was developed in the UK by Traveler's Tales, so you would think
You would assume so. Maybe,
Yeah, I don't know.
maybe the 60 hertz versions are running too fast.
That's
That's a toss up with this. I mean, having talked to a lot of European developers over time and worked with them, it's like 50-50. There's like people who were totally aware of 60 hertz and then designed it for that, and then there was people who like optimized their 50 hertz output to be very similar to the 60 hertz speed and things like that. So
there we go. So I can fill the full PAL resolution.
it's such a great game, though. Like this version of the game.
Yeah, they did a really nice job with this enhancement. Much more detail in the pixel
This is
art.
a great looking game.
Oh yeah,
Oops.
man. I mean, the Sega CD version is still great if you like, the 16-bit version. But
Yep, exactly.
This one, and then especially with the patch, if you're really, needing the 60-hertz patch. But someone's saying that it actually crashes, so it's not viable for X Station. Except on the emulator, so they need to go back into the patch and fix it for real hardware at this point.
Oh, so it doesn't actually work on
Very
real
interesting.
hardware. Interesting.
So I've seen this throughout the day, but people have been commenting on my ever-growing mustache. I'm not shaving until I get vaccinated. It's just a personal thing.
Oh, so
It'll
you'll know
go.
when it happens. You'll know when it
Yes.
happens.
Yes. When
Is
I
it
get
getting
my
better for you
second
guys over there?
It is.
Well, for
good.
John got vaccinated, I think, right?
Yes, finally.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
improved
still
in
waiting on
Germany.
mine. Yeah.
Do
It's good,
you
yeah.
have any idea when it's going to happen?
So it's gradually improving for
Whoops.
me. So it's probably the next few weeks. I'll probably
Cool.
get my date. So yeah, it's getting better. I mean, they always assumed April, May would be kind of when we had enough stock and whatnot. So Triangle sends another. Can someone figure out the conversion rate for rubles so I don't feel bad about every time Triangle sends in money?
Yeah.
Is CAM or EU Mesacam supported or planned? Why not rescale old TV recordings? So Secam.
PAL, the French.
Yeah.
Oh,
I guess-
the device.
Yeah.
I think the video chip works with it. Although I will admit I've never tested it.
Mhm. We'll see if we can find someone to test it. Modern Vintage Gamer sends $20 with no comment, but
Oh, well, thank you.
G is here.
MVG, friend of the show. Super smart guy. Yeah.
And he did a great video on.
It was an awesome video.
Yeah. He did a really good one.
I pretty much for the past few months, every week I go my weekly run. It's what I listen to.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Oh, he says, my message didn't come through. Want to say big shout out to Mike for the Tink 5X, Modern Vintage Gamer. All right, so we
Well,
got
huge thanks
so
to you
so
for
there-
doing the detailed review.
There was a message there.
there was a message, it just didn't get through, but we caught it. They caught it. So
Huge thanks to MVG. This sounds silly, but I think I was getting some Twitter comments like, "Why are you guys prioritizing quote unquote influencers first?" I don't even know his real name. He's just fast. I think he was one of the first guys to click on the buy button.
he's just an MVG for everyone now. Even this mother calls it MVG.
And it's also a testament to your shipping speed that you got it out so fast. Like, these things came, like, they flew out the door, man. I mean, I guess you're still
Yeah.
finishing that,
It's
you and
a-
your wife, but it's a lot.
It's pretty much 100% my wife, because she's the one that's holding up the shipping while I'm off at work at the office during the day. But yeah, she had, I think, a bunch of packages pre-done on launch day, so that's why we got a huge wave out and people were getting it. But now we're it's getting to the tail end, but progress is slower because we have to unbox it from the factory, flash the latest firmware, do a QC, then package. So it's no longer like 100 units a day, right? It just takes more time. So appreciate everyone for their patience.
So your wife is she also into gaming, or is she just coming into this, support? What's her reaction to kind of the response and just the traffic towards Tink?
I think she's really glad that something we built has gotten a lot of reception, but definitely she's not as much of a gamer.
No, okay.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I wouldn't say I'm a gamer these days either. I messed with game-related equipment, but I never have time to play games.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still awesome to see. I mean, she must be really happy just seeing the response.
She's very happy.
Because I see her mention quite a lot, and that she should. I mean, she's helped you so much. So, and
absolutely
packaging, and so she's very much part of all this. But it's great to just see people recognize and mention her that much. I'm sure it's fun for her to just see the acceptance from the community.
It's always the most rewarding part is interacting with people. That makes, I think, especially for her, all the struggles worth it. And she's been really a huge help because she put a career in patent law on hold. That kind of helped me out with this. So definitely none of that would be possible without her.
A huge shout out to her then.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it's I think people don't always realize how much others in the family can contribute to things, especially when you're like a public facing like this. Like, I mean, in my case, like I wouldn't have ever been able to do this Digital Foundry stuff at all without the support of my wife. Both in terms of actually like supporting me with words of encouragement and also like financially making it possible, because I could not have done this otherwise. Because I don't think it's a big secret, but you don't get rich by doing this. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Your wife's German, right?
No, she's French.
Okay. So I guess maybe this is a longer discussion, but I always thought with a name of Linneman you were German and you were moving back to the home country.
No, definitely not.
Everyone thinks this.
Yeah, no, you're right though. The thing is though, is our name only has one N at the end. Whereas in Germany, the name still has two N's. So we often have to tell people, when we give our name for something, it's like it's Linneman, but one N at the end. Otherwise,
and the Germans are kind of puffy, so they're probably like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah, exactly. Like, wait, really? It's like, all right. So, but yeah, I feel like we're coming up to a pretty good part to kind of jump off here. What do you guys think? Anything else you want to touch on before we hang up for this evening?
Just a huge thanks to you and all the viewers and all the customers for making all of this possible. Right? Just I think it's the same. It goes same story for all the creators in this space. It's really the audience that keeps it going, and that's the big thanks should go to.
It's awesome.
So let's do the last super chat before we leave them, because it kind of is a good question to end on. It's from Louis Martin.
Luis is a friend of the show, and he's done a lot of work in games, big budget games, but also was one of the main artists on Paprium.
Yep.
Weirdly enough,
and done great work.
Yep.
Hey John, Audi, and Mike. Now that the RetroTINK is sold out and the next batch is expected for June, July, will the supply be ongoing afterwards as long as there is demand? Great work on the RetroTINK, by the way.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. I hope so. It's been production has been kind of slow, but we have enough key parts that we can keep going for the rest of the year. It's slow because some of the other stuff takes longer to order, right? Before when we order a run of PCBs, we can get it in a month because everything's, all the little stuff was in inventory at the distributors. But now it takes, 2 months, right? Because
of course
you just have to wait. But our goal is eventually hopefully with this batch we'll be in inventory. If we're not, certainly by the end of the year. We've always tried to keep stuff in inventory just because it's just, I think, easier for everyone.
Wow, and just at the end here, it's just like we have another legend that just showed up in the chat. It's Artemio.
He is a man that deserves a thanks. I mean, when I say I don't play games, the one quote unquote game I play every day is 240p test speed. That's pretty much I stare at that thing constantly.
Legit,
and I think he's made a lot of things possible.
Round of applause for Artemio, because what a dude! Super nice guy too, unbelievably knowledgeable.
Yep.
Yeah, so many. It's awesome, man. The retro community is awesome. So,
and
it is an awesome space.
One last Euro, no message from Daniel Black.
Well, thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
But yeah, I guess that's going to do it. So first of all, big thanks to Mike for coming on and hanging out with us, talking about this stuff. Really appreciate having you here.
Oh, thank you guys for having me on. It's a real pleasure.
Of course, anytime. And then, of course, Audi, my partner in crime for all this retro stuff. Thank you as always. So
I couldn't pass up the chance to hang out with Mike, so I'm very happy to be here. And sorry you had to get up so early.
Yeah, exactly.
It's my pleasure. I'm usually angry when I have to get up early for something, and I try not to do it. But this was something I was very much looking forward to, and it was great finally meeting you face to face, Audi.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll see everybody in the chat next time we do a live stream, which it'll be soon enough. Maybe in the next 2 weeks again. We'll come up with something pretty fun, I'm sure.
And then on the Patreon, right after this, you'll get our 2-hour Q&A,
which was actually very entertaining. So.
It certainly was.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today's stream. So we'll catch everybody next time. Take care.